indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's see, approval of minutes from previous meetings.
We do them both at once.
Yes, you can.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Jason, did you have a comment?
I don't know. Do you think it's too well with this one? Okay. No.
All right, motion made and seconded to approve the minutes, in both of the minutes. Judy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Grant? All right, minutes were approved, claims and payrolls.
The only thing I saw, and I talked to Mike about a little bit before, was the bill to the hospital about paying for the flu shots. I said basically my thoughts on from now on is we just pay for their insurance, and run it through their insurance instead of the city paying for their flu shots.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal. In fact, we were kind of not, I was saying we were pleasantly unsurprised at the dollar amount, how much it raised. It used to be like $15, just a no-brainer, get all those city workers and everybody get a shot, but I think they went up to like almost 50, didn't they?
I think that's a good idea.
I don't know if we need a motion on that or how this works, but to make it known.
Just change, yeah, I'm fine with it. Not a big deal.
We need a motion, claims and payrolls.
Can we look at something maybe to get an electronic time card system where we don't get the handwritten each month? I mean, because there's enough software out there that we should be able to brook them.
Like a swipe card type thing?
Yeah.
Is that what you? Yeah, I mean, it's a little more costly, but that is certainly.
Well, it doesn't have to
I
be that.
think it would save a lot of time from.
Is it our employees punching time clocks now? Or? Well, that should be as easy as just putting in a spreadsheet so I can call you're looking for, isn't it? I mean, we don't need to change our time clocks to a swipe if they're punching a time clock.
If it makes it more efficient, something to look at. Just,
Couple $1,000 to change our time clock.
well, I don't know, that's what I was looking for.
No, we ordered through Burke anyway, so, and I know there was a sizable difference. I couldn't tell you what it was though.
I just think there's
Just
better
take it
ways of
easier.
doing it than a handwritten on a note.
Right. You know, and having 2 weeks that's blank because somebody didn't hand theirs in.
Push that situation correctly the next day.
I'm sure.
Which was not as serious an issue as I heard it was made to be. So,
Yeah, it wasn't serious at all. But it still was corrected.
I don't see why you just can't get copies of the time cards. So, I mean, save yourself time calling, just give us copies of the time cards. But, I mean, isn't that what you're wanting, Joe?
Yeah, that might work too. What's ever easier. I mean, let's look at all the different options.
So,
But I mean, the time clock might be new enough that if we could take what that data's got and put it in Excel, I just.
Well, the thing is, she's putting it in payroll somehow, so we might as well, there's gotta be something that's generated from payroll.
Do it then. I'll make a motion that we approve claims and payroll.
Second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve the claims and payroll. Judy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jason? Grant?
Aye.
Motion carried. Reports, and I guess the only one we've got is a police report. Jerry, you can do that?
Just so you
Must
know,
be
you're,
something wrong, Jerry's gotta do it.
you're missing the red hat, just so you know.
yeah, where's his flannel at?
Good evening to you too. I'm filling in for Bruce. He had some family that showed up at home tonight, so he did give me a list of the activity this month. It's really low, just because it's just so darn cold out. And just nothing.
Do you have me give you an update at all on the speed sign he was gonna check on?
No, we didn't.
Would you just remind him
the east end,
Mhm.
that was 30 days ago, is the only reason I'm bringing it up now, is we brought it up as last, and then not to put you on the spot here,
Oh, that's fine.
but we mentioned it to Bruce last month, and the time wasn't up because of the 30-day limit on not licensed vehicles and that sort of thing. They're still sitting there, so make it known by next month, there should be tickets handed out.
Gotcha. I know Chief Yosen did get a hold of him, but I don't know how long ago. I think it was in the last week, like 7 days ago.
The one's gone.
And I know one's going,
Yeah.
because I seen him haul it out of town.
He's got the one missing the back axle.
But there's a whole,
3 or 4 of them along.
there's about 5 or
east
6
of
of
it.
them down there. Most of them are hidden back, but
Still got tenants in them, or?
Still somebody living in it? I don't know. That's an RV car.
the one who was living there, I haven't seen him in there, but I haven't seen him around, so.
Might be froze.
No.
Jason's gonna get the call.
No, well, yeah, Jerry would be there right there too, so. How long is the, limit on staying in the park, camping in the park?
It depends. I mean, we have the 3-day limit for the campers. We have in the past taken some people, usually like workers,
Okay,
construction workers.
that's what I think is going on. I mean,
Right,
I think
it's
a lot of
fine.
people are out RV camping in this weather,
No,
so I just was kind of curious, like, do we have a standard policy for that?
yes, and they usually will pay X amount of dollars because they are using the electricity. Obviously, the water and showers are a little bit suspect, but the electric is fine, and they go ahead and if we have any sewer dumping in that, they've asked us where would you go. Normally, it's like a country club where they've got to go to Norfolk or they've got to find an RV park to dump.
You're not dumping out in the park right now?
No,
That's good.
no.
So do we have a policy on paper or something for the past 3 days, or if they want to rent longer than 3 days?
No, what they do is they'll come in first and they ask, what is
Right.
permissible.
And that doesn't bother me, but,
So are they paying a little bit now?
Mhm.
so that's my question, if we got income coming in, we should probably have a policy down on paper, maybe we work on something for next month,
Okay.
please.
Jerry, do you know any reason, security-wise, surveillance stuff, why lights are on at the park again, at the tennis courts?
No, they were on the other night, but then last week they were all off, but
They're back on.
I don't know how much it costs the city to run those, but I do kind of like them on, because you can't see nothing in the park when they're off. That's why I haven't shut them off when they've been on. I mean, I don't know, I guess it's up to you if you want them off every night, we can make sure they're off.
I don't have a clue what they are, but I
Yeah.
had it brought up to me by a few people.
I have too, and I talked to Bruce. One of the things we might want to do, and it's okay, and I'll bring it up to Bruce tomorrow too, is that, it's okay to have them on during some of the evening hours, and that's when I get the questions on them. But if Tyler's on the third shift or something like that, or if Tyler's even on second on a long shift, just have him shut them off before he goes home, midnight. I mean, there's no reason for them to be on, I think, between midnight and 6.
Until it gets nice out.
And,
Yeah, that's different, because honestly, there's usually somebody up there pretty late at night. So.
Anything else?
Yeah, that should do it, Gary, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Ball backers, request on funding.
Give you this back here.
All right, hopefully you guys all got the packet that I left for you. Hopefully there's quite a bit of information in there to answer some of your questions or kind of see what's been going on the last couple of years. And if you haven't noticed it by driving down by the fields and things like that, then there's a couple options that were put in that packet. Just maybe start a discussion. Nothing. We're not set on either one of those options. It's just kind of start a discussion between yourselves and maybe what direction we'd like to go and to maybe get something in writing. So.
Where was it left when I think I was fairly new, if I was even on the council, it was on me. How's that, what's the responsibilities for the city at this point versus the ball backers on upkeep, maintenance?
The way the ball backers, when it was first they took over, the way the process worked is they wanted to have control of the ball diamonds themselves, and they still have the outfields, and the city workers still do that. Prior to that, when the city had control of the city rec board and the fields, we would do the whole thing. And that was a change. Now I know that there's been some consideration. Obviously, there's some young mothers that work down there that have now just had children. And I have no problem with looking at the city park, and they always used to do it. They certainly have the equipment to be able to do the fields and do it all.
Did they ever do the lighting of the fields, that kind of thing?
No.
Is that going to be expected?
Very seldom with lighting because they all
the lines.
change.
Uh-huh.
That, well, as far as chalk in the fields, that's very insignificant as far as preparing the fields. The main concern is like last spring it was very wet, and the majority of us on the board, work, jobs too, and it's tough just to leave and go down and try and drag a field, and start raking and doing all the work and getting it ready so we can play that night. And so what we run into is we had some games canceled completely. We had 5 games maybe scheduled on one night. Well, then we're making them up here and there where we'll have one game down at the ball field rather than having 5 all in one night due to everybody's scheduling. And that affects our concession sales and things like that. And it's just, if we can play the games when they're scheduled by having somebody maybe in charge of
It affects the perception of us too as a community.
Right, I think it helps.
I mean, because we get a lot of visitors up there, and I think the better we can make it look, the more it gets used, the better it is
So
for
can you
everybody.
do the chalking and the city guys?
Well, generally the coach can even do
Okay.
the actual chalking of the lines. That takes 10 minutes or less,
And to be honest, Judy, they all differ. You have chalking, maybe a foul line might remain the same, but everything else can change very quickly on even the home plate. You've got different levels, so the coaches know the most about who's playing and
Right.
what they need.
And I think, and by all means, we don't need a decision tonight on this. You can think about that and discuss it among yourselves and maybe make a decision on which
Is
direction to
ballbackers
go.
now encompassing Legion too?
There's some conversation about that. We don't really know for sure. If there's enough to form a team, more than likely, I guess the direction I feel that it's going is going to be where the ball backers will kind of be an authority above that. But
That would make sense.
I don't know if it's going to happen this year.
Okay.
Regardless, I think it will happen next year, so we're going to start planning on that and having a term, some terms, what we're looking for next year for region ball. But this here is really just encompassing the youth program and I guess the softball program because there is 14 of them
Yeah, I
there.
think
So.
that's huge. And this is just my suggestion, but I think we should make the recommendation that they come back next month with a Keno grant. Because wouldn't that be for the month after?
April, but it's whatever, as long as they
I
have
mean, because
some
wouldn't
idea.
that actually be the more appropriate funding for this?
I thought we already budgeted for this.
We didn't budget anything for it.
No, that was brought up actually in July, August, and September, and every month we brought up the budget meeting, and it was Xed out.
I think the one thing, Brian, and I guess I'm a baseball dad and stuff, I love baseball, but I don't think it's out of question. I know I understand why you guys don't, but to the point, charging some of these kids, and I understand there's some families that can't, but I mean,
Right.
even if it's a $15 for the season thing, just to pay for the shirt,
Right.
I mean, you're looking at, 115 kiddos, $1,700.
Well,
And
yeah.
I mean, if there's families out there, there's other donations or avenues to make that happen.
Right, and it's probably a direction that we'll eventually lean towards. I think initially, with the last few years, we've been trying to build the program up to get
Yeah, keep
excitement,
the
to getting
Yeah.
kids involved.
So my point is, I don't think the $15 is going to make or break that. I don't think it's
No.
going to turn anybody off. But the thing is,
Well, if you did that, let's make sure that if families can't afford it, they still have.
there's
an
other.
option.
I mean, it's no different
Right.
than little.
Well, we had
kids.
we had a family come from Pierce last year because they charged $50 a kid, no limit. So as far as I knew, so if you had 4 kids, it was $200.
Yeah.
They came here and played because it was free.
I mean, it's no different than soccer and all the different ones we do out here.
And the other thing too, we had probably 5 kids that had never played a sport ever in their entire life, and they played softball because it was free. It wasn't like soccer, that There's cost there. There's cost to do club basketball. And now since playing softball or t-ball or whatever, they've gone out for soccer and they've gone out for those things because I think the families and the kids see the value of team sports. But I think we'll eventually go that
My biggest thing is,
direction.
we talk about it's $4,000 is what the city's given in the past.
Right.
But I mean, you are halfway there if you just charge $15. I mean, I'm
Right.
not telling you what to do or anything, but I mean, that's as little as that is. And then, I mean, like Joe says, it's always put somebody in an awkward position, but there's always other avenues for getting that $15. I mean, everybody knows what's happening.
Right.
What's going on.
Well, and a lot of things like that, they'll have what they call a scholarship or something, where if, you come in, you fill out a scholarship form, and we waive the $15 fee, so. And that's something we can maybe look at next year. Now, I know this year, we did set a deadline for applications, and if somebody doesn't have their application, they could be subject to a $20 or $25 fee.
Right.
And that was more so to get the teams in line, because when you have stragglers coming in and out every couple days, it's pretty hard to order jerseys and things like that. So, but yeah, I think that's a good point too.
I think there's a lot of different things. I mean, I'm familiar with all the Creighton's ball fields and stuff, so drive past that and how much brighter it is in that. And nothing better than that fresh mowed green grass.
And look what Pierce is putting together too.
But
Well, and if
I think
anybody's
there's
seen
a lot of
Neely's complex as well, Neely, I mean, I know they flooded, but,
Yeah.
I mean, they put up a brand new complex, it's real nice, so.
I mean, there's a lot of people out there, like on the herbicide thing. I'm sure you guys have talked to him, but I mean, between Helena and CBA.
Right. Well, and that's just, and again, that was just throwing some ideas out there. I don't think there's nothing really in writing that says the city of Plainview has these responsibilities and the ball backers have these responsibilities. And I think it would be nice if we had something there. So when I'm off the board, or when you guys are off city council, and you're not the mayor, 5, 6 years, whatever, and somebody says, well, what is the responsibility of ball backers? We can go back and look and say, well, here it is right in writing. That's part of this too.
Well, I think the majority of us, or all of us, are for the city helping maintain it more. I'd also like to make sure that both concession stands have lights that are on throughout the night so they don't get vandalized.
And I will say the last 2 years that we've been doing that, we haven't had any issues. So.
I kind of agree with Joe on the Keno grant. You already have your matching funds here through fundraising. You can see what you're fine.
And I know there's a balance in there, and I think that, that we've got left over from doing some fundraising and things like that. And we want to keep somewhat of a cushion too, for things that come up. And we're still growing. I mean, we don't have 16 and under and 18 under softball team yet, so as those fill up, it's going to take money for those too. And
The older the kids, I think, the more it costs for the equipment and everything else.
right, we haven't really topped out, if you will. And Legion baseball is a whole nother deal in itself, but that's kind of the goal, I think, is to get that going.
Bruce, do we need to have an agreement? Maybe we can come up with an agreement to have signed by whatever, and just once a year renew the agreement of the ball backers and the city
If
council.
we were paying $4,000, there's probably an agreement out there.
Close to what I was going to ask, I mean, how do you want to go about writing this down? We can make it some sort of an annual agreement.
Well, I think what I'd like to see is kind of what I provided you.
Yeah,
I mean, if I'm not the
Your
treasurer,
number 2 is what you're thinking of mainly, the number 2 being the city does the ranking and grading?
well, I think that, and I think any fixtures of the field, maybe would be run through city funding.
I was going to say, you look at one and just take the last half of one, and then add like
Mowing and the dragging and.
Right. Because you guys said you would do the lines?
Yeah, that's not a big
If the
deal.
city guys could go out and drag it, so the.
Right, and I think you've got some good summer help that are all, at least you have in the past. I don't know who you'll have this year, but,
But the ones you
They like to hang out up there anyway,
they like the ball fields anyway.
so.
Well, and then, that also opens up, does the city have a four-wheeler or something to use? We've got four-wheeler, ball backers does, then we've got to have an agreement there, is that?
We have an older four-wheeler, the ball backer Keno City Rec four-wheeler that they have. I don't know, it's technically theirs, I guess, someone, I mean, it's,
That's my question, why? They haven't forwarded it, so.
Do they have a shed for it up there?
yeah, we let them use it. I think unless somebody's taking it home,
What, the four-wheeler?
yeah.
No, it's
shed.
in,
It's in the shed.
it's in the shed up there.
It's in that shed that, it's right by the concession stand.
You know, so those are all things to work out and think about when we're talking about this and the long-term projects and how we want to go about doing that. And that's why I didn't necessarily expect, a decision tonight.
We had a couple of athletic-based grants for the Keno grants last month. I would like to kind of see all of those, limit us to a percentage of our Keno grants go to student athletics.
Yeah, we talked
And
about
then-
that, whether we make a
yeah.
certain amount each year that we set aside or something? So you guys can plan on,
Right.
Yeah.
1,500 for softball, 1,500 for baseball, 1,500 for Legion,
Well,
1,000 for bowling.
right, and that's nice and all, remember, we keep setting these, we're gonna do this, and it never happens, so why don't we just, as it comes, and say, keep in the back of our mind, bowling always asks for the, 700 or something,
750, yeah.
something like that, you know what I mean? That's coming up, because our Keno funds are going down, guys. So, I took up Keno just because I'm such a charitable person to do that. But, you know what I'm saying, Keno funds are going down.
If you gamble more, we'd be all right.
That's probably okay, but then I'd also need a new place to live, so.
I need a room.
Okay.
Well, and I think each year, the ball backers can put together an annual report like this. And I would expect if we have a subcommittee handling the Legion program, I would expect them to put together an annual report of their ins and outs and what they expect done to the field. And when then we come to the table and we work together to get those improvements completed up there. Like in that information I gave you, we talked about, putting the floor down on the batting cage. If we were able to get the concrete at a discounted price or get it donated, maybe would the city be willing to get some guys to lay that concrete, or something like that. That's just an example. That's just throwing something out there, but.
And that's the way I think it, I will throw my 2 cents, I think that's how it should be, that's city property. That's how, to some extent, that's city park, the city should be doing that.
Right.
They have the employees that know how to do it, they got Jason that's good at it. Instead of you guys reinvent the wheel, let's use what we've got, that's.
Well, and each year we have a cleanup day, and
Yeah.
we paint the things that need to be painted, but, maybe because it is improving the fixture on the city's field, the city would maybe pay for the paint, and we'd have the kids and the coaches come out there and paint. And they don't mind doing that, they like getting dirty, and, they're cleaning
Speaking
up.
of, did we ever get the covers on the concrete slabs that were down the foul lines that we talked about?
I don't know if they,
I don't know if they did or not, because I wasn't on private field much, but I don't,
Because if we didn't, we
Right.
approved
We
those
just
last
had
year.
2 small fields last year, because we just had kids on the 2 small fields. So the only things we've done are there, so that would, although this year, if we're gonna have Legion ball,
Legion, that's
that's something
something that's gonna,
I can go check, I don't know for sure right off the top of my
Well,
head.
it's just something, Mary, that we approved last
Right.
year, so
Right, well, and
might as well get it done if we got it.
absolutely,
Right.
you're just talking about the 2 feet, the little circles, or are you talking about the square?
no,
It's
the
just
coach's box.
Yeah, to where you see a kid go out for a pop and slide on that and crack their head. Or
I
even
think that
worse,
should be
somebody
done.
klutzy like me.
I remember you wanted done, it was right at the end of the season, and I think that what they need to do on them before they play, you can't play Legion ball anyway without those being covered. The pony ball was a different story.
Right, that was.
We talked about doing them in red, so it matched.
In red and different color, yeah, but they won't allow you to play Legion ball without it.
Well, and like I said, this doesn't have anything about Legion in it, but we should have that figured out hopefully within the next month, by maybe next meeting. And that might change the landscape a little bit if we have a Legion team. So, because it's gonna take more to get that up and going, and there probably is some more priorities with that as opposed to what's in here for the youth program. But,
Hopefully your youth program will feed the future Legion program.
well, that's what we're hoping. So we have a lot of kids that will go out every year. So that's kind of the information, I guess, that I gave to you guys. If you have any other questions at all, or
I think we agreed to have them come back next month with a keynote
Well, it's,
request.
when's Keno time?
Keno's end of March, and then the April meeting is when you grant it. If you have to do something, that's your call as a council, contrary, but the typical would be April meeting, second Tuesday.
Can we have somebody from the council or Mike or somebody to work with on drawing up an agreement of some sort of what the responsibilities would be?
I'd be willing to sit down with you tonight,
I mean, just kind of spell it out in that way.
because I don't have a kid playing.
Well, if we got an agreement, make sure it passes in front of Brooke.
Right, oh, yeah, in front of Bruce, absolutely.
So he makes sure it's all right, so.
At least just start the foundation of that anyhow.
And then take it to Bruce for his
Yeah.
yay or nay, or.
Just give us an outline of all the
Right.
terms you need.
I mean, proposal, proposal number one is one we're fine with, except adding mowing or something.
Yeah, I was talking about that would require us to get the electricity out there to the places they need it, the water to the places they need it, and the lights to be functional. And then mowing and field
That's
trip.
the
Field
thing, just,
trip.
just overall from year to year maintenance and upkeep, what
Right.
your responsibility is this.
Right. And then, and I guess the improvements, just maybe have the bigger improvements, like the batting cage and the fence out there. Would you prefer we come up with some numbers and bring it, okay, this is what it's gonna cost, this is what we can find, and then just talk about that, or, I mean, is that something we wanna look at doing?
We can always talk.
I think we look,
I think you always want to come with numbers. The more prepared we are, the better off we are.
I think we almost have to look at it as two different things, a two-step process.
Right.
Here's from here on out, black and white, city's responsibility,
Right, yeah.
Ballbacker's responsibility.
Right.
And then any other one-time projects
Yeah,
on top
I
of
would
that.
say those would be considered major projects, if you will, and we'd have to work together to get those completed, but we have a timeline of what we'd like to see done. Sometimes it's not feasible, but I'd like to give it our best effort.
Would that go under parks then?
No,
No. So we don't have any budgeted anywhere for it? Or would-
you certainly can in July and August and September if you want to go to the next year, but your proposal of maybe having an entitlement or a set aside for the Keno would preclude that from the Park and Rec. But it doesn't, you would want to do both. We already have in the Park and Rec, your lighting, your
Oh, we do?
general,
Okay.
that's
All right.
already covered.
Oh, okay, that's what I was wondering where it was going from.
But as far as any of the field work or the field stuff and that would either fall, the labor would fall under instead of the rec part of it, the park board, and we'd have to go to the park board and basically when they hire, set those duties and differentiate what they're supposed to have to do.
So we'll get there eventually, but just off the top of your head, does the Ballbackers have any legal structure at all? Or are we just gonna call it, this is a group of folks
Well,
that like
we're
to play ball?
A nonprofit
We're
corporation.
a nonprofit.
So there is a corporation out there?
Yeah.
Brian's
In fact,
got
I just
it.
sent stuff from the Secretary of
So you
State
got that
last
now.
year. Yeah.
You got it through the federal, we got the IRS standing letter back, so
Yeah.
he's got.
Yeah, I've got all that stuff,
So
so.
it's not profit or not, doesn't matter, as long as we got something.
Yeah, it's,
Somebody to make the agreement.
yeah.
Sounds awesome.
So I guess where we stand is come back the end of March
Well,
with the Keno request.
No, you and I and Michael. get
Well, we'll
together
sit
before
together
that.
before that
Yeah.
and figure out how we get proposal one done,
yeah.
for the most part.
And I do think it's important, and I know we've talked about it, Brian, so I'm not saying anything, but I know that, in all fairness to the board and the board structures you got set up, Randy, Hildebrand has done a good job of keeping what I would call a defunct field up for the last 2 or 3 years, and I would certainly hope that he's, a big part of that discussion as well, because. I think
Right,
it's
well,
gonna-
he'll certainly be invited, whether, if, he wants to be part of it, that's certainly, he's on our board, that'll be, I guess, his choice whether or not he wants to come.
I'm surprised he came in and left.
Yeah. He was surprised we had a meeting, but his emails have been working. But anyhow, we'll get that figured out and scheduled and sit down and we'll include Randy in the loop. I think he's done a good job with the field. The field is just sitting there not being used, so.
Public hearing time.
Anything else? All right, thanks.
Thank you, keep up the good work with that stuff. Yeah, I think Hawaii can wait a little bit longer, don't you? Oh,
We're looking at you, Roger.
we're talking about you.
Talking about your tan.
Yeah. At least he's nice enough not to have like the shirt on and
He's
some
got a Hawaiian
sunglasses
shirt
when he walks
on.
in. Sitting there with his pina colada.
That's all we're.
I make a motion, we open the public hearing for the 1 and 6 year road plan.
Okay. I'll second that.
All right, motion made, and seconded to open the public hearing on the 1 and 6 year road plan. Judy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Grant? I guess we'll call that meeting to order. I guess it's open. Do you actually need to do anything for it?
Yeah, you do, you need to.
Okay, we'll do it.
You will need to pass it. If you look in your package, you'll see that Terry, who was here last month, moved things around and put the one-year projects that will coincide with the paving districts up and move things so that they would be in line, that's all. So we have a one-year project to do. It's not in the long-distance future. And I know we had 4th Street, for example,
Right.
the Family Dollar project's been moved up, so. We just need to get it done, get it passed.
Do we need to have any, I guess,
As long as it's a public hearing, I guess
Yeah.
we could certainly ask for any public comments on the 1 and 6 year plan. If anybody here wanted to make comments on that. I frankly don't know why you'd want to.
well, maybe they don't want us to pay, maybe they want us to pay. Who knows?
Maybe you don't want to pay it, that'd be all right.
Pay it anyways. So, at least that's my stance. So,
I make a motion to approve resolution
You,
number 497.
Before you do that, you'll want to close your hearing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I make a motion to close the hearing.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. Judy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jason?
Keeping track.
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
All right, the hearing is closed. Now we can do.
Now I make a motion to approve resolution 497 for the 1 and 6 year street improvement.
I second that.
All right, motion made and seconded to approve resolution 497. Judy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Grant?
Aye.
That is approved.
No, just Dennis.
Just, who? Just Bob, because Grant's already on
Why has it got so many lines on
It's
Name
okay.
sign.
it? Yeah. Just put an X beside my name.
I'll just white it out. It's okay.
Why is it coming past me?
So much stuff comes in front of you, you just want
Do we have to
Sign it.
approve this
Exactly.
ordinance?
to.
919?
I think you're a little bit ahead of yourself on that. This is just for the 1 and 6.
Okay.
For those in the audience that
I
don't,
thought that-
there's 2 separate issues. Paving district, which I know some of you are here probably to talk about, is one thing. This is the 1 and 6. This is primarily set up to allow paving projects to be done and also receive our highway allocation dollars that we receive each year, to do repairs or building or have a city guy,
That's the technical.
That's the technical.
a city guy. Or girl.
All right, is that it for number 7 then? Our public hearing? Then I guess we're back to number 6, which is the 840 plan. Roger, were you going to talk about the 840 plan? Or?
I'd like to say a few words if I can.
I don't know.
Roger, Roger saying a few words, or in Hawaiian?
That doesn't usually happen, but I don't have a report tonight since I haven't been back long enough, but I did want to speak to the LB 840 plan, just give you an opinion and urge you to move on with that plan. I think all of you got a copy of an LB 840 plan, a little bit complex, but a lot of time and effort put into it by Bruce and Mike, that's obvious. And it's something we need to have if we're going to move on with any kind of economic development plans for the city. And I think in reading it over how many times, you look for things that you think you might have missed, but I believe this plan is probably as close as you're going to get to having what you want.
I was just gonna ask, has Bruce given you the okay on it? Is he,
Well, it's up to the city or the council how you move on now. I guess I'm just encouraging you to take the next step and look to
Oh, no, I don't think there's any doubt that
to
that's.
adopt, And of course, then you have a couple more steps to take after that.
I mean, doesn't the council actually want to walk through this thing and know what it is you're passing? I don't know if you want to do it tonight.
Well, in consequently too, Bruce, and I have to agree with Bruce, one of the things from the last meeting, I asked if there were any changes, and I did reduce everything that you asked me to do off that plan. If there's some typos in there too, I'm having a computer communication thing with the printer, so I didn't type it wrong. But But if you look at
the scanner just failed a few places.
it's not good. But going back to the LBA 40 plan, all the parts you wanted out have been taken out, the technicalities, and you do need to take some serious thought on a couple things. And I met with Roger today for lunch, and one of the things I would appreciate, and maybe set us up a time, we need to probably go into a hearing in the near future, like within the next 2-3 weeks, maybe prior to the next meeting, just to get this open to the public, and that way you can have it in front of you, so we can make the May 50 days, I believe it is, to
So I
50
guess I'm
days
just
prior to the
asking,
primary.
Do we look at it and then give it to Bruce, or are we at the point now where Bruce needs to look at it and make sure it's got everything and doesn't have stuff it's not supposed to, and then we can implement?
both. You've got time, a little bit of time. I would like to have your input, I really would.
Okay.
The Citizen Advisory Board is very important in this process of the statute. You can probably pass this and then create your Citizen Advisory Board. That's not a big deal, but something I want you to think about. And the other thing that we talked about the last month is the contemplation of the longevity of the plan. I think one with the other, we had decided that economic development and the LB 840 plan, without having a time frame in this, might work because they go hand in hand. I'm not sure of what your thoughts were completely. If you want just to go a certain number of years, I don't recommend it, but you can.
I think we always want to have economic development. I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where we say,
Right.
we're status quo, we're good.
Well, we can amend it as is.
And if you look at number 13, you're right. It's the right to amend the plan as you go through it as well. So,
You also have the right to terminate it.
and you have the right to terminate.
You do. Hope you don't, but you have that right.
Right now, just for instance of things you might want to read and see if you really want to put in there. It doesn't say it's limited to funding just by sales tax. It says it will be funded by property taxes, sales tax, and other general taxes levied in the city. That may be harder to sell if anybody that's voting really reads it
Yeah, it should be
than
the,
just sales tax.
That's your call, and I
don't
agree.
you think? It should be the specific tax that we've already got in place for that?
I think it's more saleable
If that's
that
what you
way,
want.
probably.
Because the last thing I want to do is
What we
threaten
talked
people's
about
property
so far.
taxes for,
But we could amend that
We
at
need
any
that
time
kind of
too.
sure.
You could amend any part of it.
You don't want to present the plan that has any hidden, anything, even the right on the issuance of bonds. I mean, there's a lot of things in here that I mean, just to take a look at and see if you want. I don't know if I really know if this needs to be in there. I don't think it's a bad idea if the time would come, if you have a major project for economic development.
I think you always want that option.
And you may never use the property tax either. You have to remember though, each year, this is a budget item that you present to the public in your budget. So
Yeah,
you're
but if
not
we're-
hiding anything.
No,
You're
but if
putting-
we're going to raise property taxes for this, I would think that would need a different vote, because that's not what they voted on.
You're putting it out there every year though, for approval or not approval.
Okay. So you're saying like, we don't touch taxes ever, but it's just the option is there,
All
or, but
that's
that's
been
still.
voted on right now is the sales tax.
Right.
Right.
And 1/3.
We have
And then we
to
can say, hey,
vote.
look, we've had this much success with it, we want to transfer this over to have to maybe raise property taxes or use some of our property taxes for, I'm just hypothetically, I'm not saying do that, but,
But you have to define the plan
Right.
now, and the citizens have to vote on the plan.
I get that.
That's why I wouldn't put property taxes in there.
No.
I'd leave the bonding in there.
Well,
Disagree, Greg?
No, I agree.
Okay.
I don't think, everybody voted on the sales tax, that's what it was.
The other thing that probably Bruce will have to work out is the language for the ballot, which is crucial.
do we need to have a special meeting, Mike?
I think right now you're at the point where I would like to see you go forward is present and come together in the public hearing with the public input and your input and have it as clean as you can.
Doesn't it make sense though to have him give us back what he thinks before we go to the public?
I think it's saying it goes, I think it can go and coincide.
Well, I can give you a list of comments on what's here if you want.
I think that would be very beneficial.
And we're gonna take out that the city attorney will review all qualifying businesses on a regular basis,
What?
because that ain't gonna happen.
Are you leaving the 20% bonus for the city administrator in there though? Are you taking
I
it
saw
out?
the 3% administration.
20% of the clown museum revenue.
Kind of eating off the subject.
You
You
can
want the city
approach it in
$10,000.
whatever order you want, but I think you need to have a fairly detailed meeting to go through it. So
Right.
that the whole council knows what it is you're gonna try to
But
sell.
all I'm saying is before we do that, Bruce, I'd love to have you say, this is good, this can't be in there, this should be in there.
Memo comment thing, sure, whatever you want.
You can put his
Where's-
numbers down, doesn't mean you have to agree with every one of them, at least you have his opinion. No?
Where it says the city
That's
of
true.
Plainview shall appropriate $35,000 annually for the economic development program.
That needs to be, that was a figure when we talked about the last time, that we needed to use a percentage number.
That goes to that same question I was raising about taxes or we'll just use the sales tax, whatever it is.
Right.
Like that says, we're gonna get $35,000 from somewhere.
That's a little specific there, you could open that up to just the sales tax revenue.
Yeah, I
The
don't
share
think
of the
that
sales.
should be in there at all. I think
Correct.
just the- yeah.
The part of it that's in under section 5, the source of funding, and the reason I was just putting to give you an idea of what the dollar amount would be, we did 35,000, but under A, that gives you the guideline to start at least the funding part of it, and saying annually from the city sales tax, which is currently 1/3 of 1%. And that's probably about as simple as you probably need it.
I'm just telling, in my opinion, you got a good draft here to work with. I think it does need a specific going over, but also needs to look at a hearing date, so we have our steps in order
Yeah, same thing.
and meet the guidelines, the timing. That's my concern, that's all I wanted to talk about.
The guidance I want from you, if you have given Bruce the guidance to look at it, is to let me go ahead with the public hearing procedure and make sure we're within the days, to make sure we're safe, and then we can push deadline up against the deadline.
Well, let's make sure we get together before that, so we
Yep.
can, if you don't
As
mind.
long as you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
That's all comment I have.
All right,
You
thanks.
can set it up tonight if you want, but if you want, I can do it by phone too, or by email. The reason I'm saying that is because this way I can see the deadline on the hearing, and then push the hearing, or push your special meeting, unless Bruce wants to do it all at once.
So you better get your special meeting in before the hearing. don't you?
Yeah, well, it would-
The city ought to have
Right.
a plan to present at the meeting.
Okay. Well, what works, people?
All right, I guess we're down to number 8, action on new health insurance agent. Is that where we are? I think we are.
Based upon your request, you have a couple of people I know here in the seats that would address this issue. We need to make sure.
Roger.
Roger.
Roger. I'm sorry. I wanted to talk about the interns with him in the room. I know it's gonna be to the end, but can we,
Yeah.
Okay.
well, you know, I mean,
We'll table that for just a second, guys.
we
Jason had a
got
question,
those
Roger.
interns, we're gonna be working with these interns, hiring these interns. I think you should be a part of that conversation, Roger, so.
The
Not
Wayne State.
involved.
You should be, you're the director.
I'm not under.
No, but you understand what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Would you want to move it up?
Yeah, we certainly can. Which one was it? What's?
right, well,
So,
interns, he's got 3 names.
Oh, okay.
So he's got 3 guys he's ready to interview. And I just figure Roger should be involved with the interview. Roger should, you know.
Yeah, Roger and I briefly talked about that, if it's okay, Mayor, to just get this out of the way.
Yeah. You need to,
it
right.
would
Wayne
be
State.
21.
We shut off the Wayne State Tracker, the program that we were working with, that professor. We ended up with 3 names. The 3 names I've contacted to have the first interview, and I would like to, and this was later on in the agenda, but I would like to have somebody from the council sit with me in on the interview so we can get this going. The other thing I
Do you
would
have
like.
dates or times like that, or?
Yeah, Friday at 1 is the first one.
Okay.
This week.
Friday the 1 this week, and I've asked them to give me options in the next 5 to 10 days, what works for them. And one has still got to get back to me, and the other one I have not heard from yet. And that's, I'm not surprised. I mean, it's still college students that are busy, but the one responded within 20 seconds.
Well, see, and that's, you know, I like that, but that's just me. I would request, if no one else wants to, I would like to be part, I will make time for that interview.
Okay.
Since this is kind of the thing I've been harping about. Unless other people want to, or I don't know.
You established in a previous meeting the rate and everything, so if this council is okay with it, with the person from the council as a representative, to go ahead and get them going, if they're all three done, unless somebody else wants to sit on the other interviews.
I'd like to see the recommendations before we proceed.
Okay. So it could wait. I guess what I'm asking is, we want to get this going, but on the other hand, you're probably recommending for the next month's meeting?
Yeah, bring us, you know, these are the three people we interviewed, here's what we think.
Do we have a written job description for these guys?
It was put into the cat tracker. I'll have to go ahead and back it out and say what we wanted them to do, but it's required to go into that.
Forward that, we need to forward that to the council.
Yeah, I'll have to retype it out on a regular Word and get it to you.
We could also put the authorization, review, and hiring on the special meeting for the LB 840 plan.
Sure.
That we want to do, so we just get the person going, I mean, so they can start their internship before April, so.
Yeah, because we're gonna run out of time and.
Did we ever find out if there was any of the Nebraska internship money out there available for this?
Yes.
There is.
Yes.
So what do we have to do to get that rolling?
I'll look at it with Joe. It's
Get
been,
Lowell from Northeast to call us back,
get Lowell to the mail.
I mean, that's,
or the guy we were working with at NMPP just quit.
It'll go hand in hand, and maybe I can do it simultaneously.
Economic, what's NEPP?
No, NMPP,
NM,
Mean,
Nebraska
their
Municipal.
economic development director,
mean?
yeah, he quit. So,
But he was big in helping us, and helping lots of small towns.
What'd you do to him?
Nothing.
My experience with the Intern Nebraska program is that you can submit your application directly to the state EED representative, and they'll approve that. So,
Okay. Anyways, so, do we want to set a special meeting now for LB 840 / finalization and then intern?
Might as well.
I'm okay. I mean, I'll work with the hearing accordingly, okay? And if you want to set a special meeting now, that's fine.
If that, I mean, what works for people? Or how, what we have
how long
to
is it
do?
gonna take for you, Bruce? to-
Yeah, you need to get Bruce's thing first.
Can't you do it while you're
Yeah.
sitting in your deer
It's only
stand?
tax season, how big a deal can it be?
Can't you do it while you're sitting in your deer
You
stand?
can read the thing and get you a memo in an hour. This is not a tough issue.
This is actually long.
What does that worry me? Okay, so how soon can we set up a special meeting? Next week? Or I can't remember how many hours we need.
You gotta get your interviews done first.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll depend on when, I mean, set your meeting up and I'll go ahead and start making some phone calls.
Last week of the month, maybe?
That's fine.
Tentatively, we can always reschedule.
Okay.
Okay.
Not Tuesday night.
Okay, so not the
I don't know,
25th.
I think.
Thursday, the 27th?
I can't remember that.
Okay.
Wednesday?
I'm always good with Wednesday, but it's up to you whether it works.
Wednesday works for me.
6?
Yeah.
We do Wednesday at 6, I can do that.
Is that okay with you, Grant?
Yeah.
What about you?
Judy?
Fine.
Bob?
Yeah, I'll be all right.
Okay.
What day is that on?
26th?
Okay, so February 26th, with the agenda to discussion on the LB 840, and then discussion/action on hiring an intern, reviewing interns, possible hiring, something like that. Does that sound like that's good for everyone? Roger, do you think you can make that meeting?
Should be able to.
Excellent, okay.
Why not?
I'm done running my mouth for the next 5 minutes.
Roger, Jason's done running his mouth, so you can go if you want.
I don't know, maybe he's not done yet.
I wanna see
He
that.
just said he wants to.
I'm giving him 5 minutes. There you go.
Okay, see you then.
Back to the health insurance agents.
Anyway, let them, get up and present their case, but
You
as
wanna
you know,
introduce each one?
yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that in just a second.
We're starting in the microphone.
Yeah.
Couple things you just need to be aware of is the procedure, the process, and I've met with most of you individually in that the process that we are doing it is the correct process now, and I've gone through the agents. However, you are, got a couple of agents missing from the room too, but I want you to be aware that they may have talked to you individually. This is not a bid process, this is someone taking over change of agent for this year, and both parties are here aware that the bid process will go into effect for all agents in November, October, November, is that about when the new rates come out? Josh, is that about right? Is it Mike, is it one of the, or,
I'm Jeff Hammer.
you're Jeff, okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's my brother John.
So anyway, you have the candidates here, and one is with the Hammer group out of Creighton, the insurance group, and then we got Sherrick with Josh with the Town and Country out of both Plainview and Pierce. And I don't know if you want to introduce yourself and go ahead and just tell them how your experience is with co-opportunity.
Okay, yeah, we started with co-opportunity in October, just like most agents, because they're brand new to the state. We've been doing insurance since, I started 19 years ago, so we have done a lot of co-opportunity health. Previously was mainly Blue Cross Blue Shield. So yeah, I mean, we're familiar with co-opportunity pretty well, both on the individual and group side. So, I mean, if you guys have any specific questions for us, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But I'm not real familiar with what happened with your current situation, but I guess that really doesn't matter going forward. So it's pretty simple to get us or whoever you decide to be your agent. It's just a matter of signing a form now. So change of agent form.
Okay, all right. Josh?
Josh Sherrick, Town and Country Insurance. Same thing, co-opportunity obviously is a brand new company. Very familiar with them. Town and Country has been in the insurance business for 42 years, me personally for 9. With the group insurance, it actually goes by when your renewal date is, so the new rates and whatnot would come out February 1 next year, and that's when it would change. I personally, a lot of individual and group business, both with co-opportunity, Blue Cross, multiple carriers. I'm a little bit unique, I think for you guys in the fact that Town and Country actually has co-opportunity as well on the group side, and I'm the administrator for that, so I would be able to help out whoever your contact person is on the group, because I can actually get in from my side and see exactly what you're seeing, because I do the same thing for our group. So, again, not extremely familiar with what happened, but I do a lot of group health insurance. I do groups from 3 all the way up to 30, 40. We always meet at least annually with every single group. Even if there's no changes, just to go over, or give everybody a refresher on their plan, whether it's HSA or non-HSA. Obviously, have an office right here in town, so easy to meet with city employees or down at the city office. So, and then same thing, if you have any specific questions on your plan, feel free to ask those.
This would be for both groups. Do you guys work with other municipalities?
As far as group health insurance, I don't have any other city groups, no, but we do have a lot of other P&C insurance with a lot of other municipalities.
I do the city of Creighton, and I also do the county of Knox.
Okay.
They're both very good agents.
I assume.
Nope.
I was like, never mind.
I know the plan that we have now involves HSA accounts, and that seemed to be a little bit of an issue when we were actually getting it set up. You guys both work with HSA, so.
Yeah, that's been an ongoing thing for the last few years. We're real familiar with that, as I'm sure you are.
Yeah, I'm a fan, but it's,
I actually have my own HSA account, and when they first started, I think they're a great deal, so.
Well, I'm just speaking for myself, but one of my issues with the last agent was misinformation.
That was the issue. That was
And
the problem.
it wasn't just minor, it was blatant. And so I guess what we would ask is if you don't know, tell us you don't know. We're pretty cool with that. We'll give you time to check, but
Yeah.
with everything that's going on, there's a ton of changes constantly. There's changes every day, when it comes to all the Obamacare regulations.
yeah, but this you would have had a 50-50 shot on like 10 answers and it was over 10.
But is that normal for an insurance company just to do that, to switch it that drastic? I mean, what, is it? I mean,
To do what now?
Yes,
the number, but we had the paperwork, we had the numbers in front of us, and it was completely wrong when we went to go with it.
Do you mean the premiums?
Right.
Premiums,
there
the
would be no
coverage,
change in
the
premiums
co-pays.
anymore.
I mean, everything was different.
She made some blatant errors in the fact that she wasn't as familiar with co-opportunity when she came to that meeting, and rather than probably saying she didn't know, she tried to, and I still believe inadvertently, just get her way out of it, and they were wrong, and we were looking at a silver plan on the co-opportunity and ended up elevating it to a gold plan to try to make it comparable to what we had before with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and the silver plan wouldn't do it.
Yeah. As far as answer your question about the rates, the groups we've issued, the rates came back exactly the way we quoted them. I mean, to the penny. So I don't know how that could be off with the, you quoted on Co-Opportunity's website. It is what it is. I mean,
I would say the only way it could be off is just if the census was entered wrong, or, dependents were entered wrong, or ages, or some people were listed as tobacco and they shouldn't have been. All that could change the rates. The rates themselves, though, are set by age. Those won't change this entire year.
So when we go to renew our policies next year, is every agent who sells Co-Opportunity going to have this, is it going to cost us the same thing no matter who we go to? So do the agents get a percentage of the premium then for their service?
it's not a percentage, it's per employee.
Yeah, it's a flat amount.
Okay.
So there's no incentive to try to get you to buy a
okay,
higher
so
premium.
It used to be a percentage, but now with Obamacare changes, that's different as well.
Okay.
The only thing that could be different, I don't know if you have any tobacco users, they do have a program where they could qualify for non-tobacco rates, even if they use tobacco by taking these 3 courses online, but you're past that point now where you had to do that initially.
Right, and we are aware of that.
Okay.
That was presented to us, and I think it's
They could look at it for next year though, right?
it's an internet simultaneous, you do it for within 60 days?
Yeah, 60 days. So
Yeah.
if you started February 1st, then you can still get it done. But if you go past that, you're SOL. You'll get a 49% rate increase.
Was your effective date February 1?
Yes.
Okay, I was thinking January. So.
January, we had basically an extension of Blue Cross Blue Shield allowed for a month extension and at a cost.
Yeah.
Pretty steep, but
I think they're both phenomenal agents. The only difference is Josh has got a presence in town.
That's where I'm at,
I
unfortunately.
don't know, do we need a motion on this?
Yeah, please. You
I
guys
make a motion
please.
strictly based upon local business. We accept Town and Country.
Yeah. We do appreciate you coming down, but I'll second.
Is that like a second?
Yeah. I'll second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Judy?
I'm going to vote nay.
Joe?
Hey.
Jason?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes, Grant. I guess motion carried, and we're going to accept Town and Country. Now, you're saying, Mike, this will be processed again at first anniversary then?
Yeah, and actually, it might still be vision. I'll still maybe call him. Because he's got a beard, I don't trust him.
Excellent, thank you so much, appreciate it.
Hey, Jason, I got a question. On the special meeting, you
Yes.
made the motion for the
Did we
special
make the
meeting.
motion or did we decide on
The motion was made, but no second was given on the special meeting for LBA.
I'll second it.
Okay.
that? Yeah, I'll make, if that means.
We have to vote on it now?
John,
Oh, okay.
I was at Haters meeting last night, and your dad was
Yeah.
there, and he's
I just needed a
got
second.
Haters,
That
so
was,
that's why.
that was my only thing, is that they have the experience with the municipal.
And that's what I was telling her, as a firm, you guys do
Yeah.
Yeah,
multiple.
yeah.
It
And
was
when
just
it,
you
when
were
it comes to
saying
the,
you, right?
to the group, I mean, it doesn't matter what business you're in, a group is a group.
Okay,
You know,
so like a private business and city, same thing.
Yep, exactly.
Thank
When it comes to the group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we are to jump number 9, Joe. This is the thing about the electrical.
Oh, Nicole? Whoever, Darnell, D-A-R-N-E-L.
Oh, it's me?
Yes, you wanted to make a presentation?
No, not a presentation, just want to get out from behind there, so. I think everybody kind of knows the situation. I just wanted to throw it out so everybody knows what's going on. I think Mike, you'll agree that the minimum amount that we've sat down and figured out that we were overcharged was 15,000.
Yeah, it was actually, and then just make sure we're on the same page, it was actually 15,705.22. However, on the books and that, just so that we're clear, you and I think that we still have 2,000 that we cut short. So really the amount then to settle on, if there is a settlement amount, is 13,532.87. Is that fair? Does that sound like that?
That's exactly what I was gonna propose tonight, was 13.5, so something to think about.
Credit.
What's that for a credit?
Per credit.
I think we need to know how this happened. I asked that the electrician be here tonight, apparently he couldn't make it.
No, Tim gave me a detail. If you want a drawing, I can show you the drawing, and I know exactly where the problem was, so.
Is that going right there?
It is, but this is what Tim kind of crude, but I mean, I can get out an easel if you want me to go to a big.
But it was kind of twofold too, was it not, Mike? That there was a rate that was being charged that did not exist.
The rate did exist, but what Joe and I talked about this, what happened is very simply in the timeline that you have, 2008, in September, at that time, a heat pump was put in. There were 2 meters that were, and this isn't uncommon in a lot of the places, but the 2 meters were put in, but what it is uncommon is a lot of these places have 2 meter loops coming into the building. One feeding the electricity that would turn on your lights, and the other one would come in and would turn on your heat pump or something like that. This one had 1 meter loop coming into the building, and actually you cannot see it because it's underground. So that made it even more difficult. When the electrician, not city necessarily, but between the city electrician and the person that put in the heat pump, the line, the meter loop was fed into the main meter. And then it went down to a panel. And as it went to the panel, it crossed over and they put a new panel and another meter for the heat pump. And when this happened, there were other entities that needed to be checked out and done as well. They were all okayed and taken care of. This one was not. So what happened is...
Who took care of them?
What's that?
You said they were all looked at and taken care of by...
The city needs to go in and look at each one of them to see if there is a problem with the way they're being fed. Now, if it is 2 meter loops coming in, it's easy to see that it's correct. It's not a problem. This was 1 meter loop going into the building, and on the outset or on the onset of these 2 meters, you really couldn't tell. You weren't really getting it unless you have an issue, a big issue. And the reason that it didn't pop up, and one more safeguard for the city, is if you have a huge rise or fall in electricity, the Power Manager program sets off an alarm so that we know exactly who has had a spike or a big jump or a big decrease, so that we're allowed to go out and at least call them and say, is there something going on? Have you got electric heaters or whatever. This had to happen on that date, the inception of that heat pump, and it was actually, there was a conduit between the two panels, and it was at the bottom. So when it went over here, it would feed the second meter and give a reading, and then it would come back down, and then it would feed out to the heat pump, or he's got resistant heat. There was no gas involved, there's nothing like that. If you have gas, it might have fired up a hot water heater, but everything you have, heat, is all electric. So, if this was working correctly, if he used 1,000, we'll just say kilowatts that month, the first meter should have read 500, and if the other one was using that amount, 500 in the heat rate, they would have said 500 and 500. What it was doing was the entire power was coming in here, and this was the full amount, and went back over here and then read the 500. So instead of 1,000 kilowatts, he was being charged for 1,500 kilowatts. And this happened on a regular basis, and that was the numbers and the figures of the overcharge as it occurred. You never would be able to see that unless you were trying to look for something in particular.
And then even when I'd come down and talk to Mike, they'd go up and look at the meters, and the meters would look right. And what actually happened was, as we were closing down here, I had 2 or 3 employees still calling. Our electric bill down here was 3 times what it was in Council Bluffs, where we had 150 agents. So
where we found the problem is actually, to be honest, is when Pinnacle shut down. Then there became something apparent that wasn't right, and that's when Tim did the checking. I also had called in Dave Hogenstrat from Pierce to have him come up and take a look at it to confirm what was actually happening. Why this wasn't in a normal process in the past, why this wasn't being subtracted from this, was strictly based upon a clerk, having the computer program and having to do it manually. At the time it was put in, and there is no names, I won't even use a name, was prior to the clerk who does it now. And it was never changed. So the clerk that does it now, Nancy, would have never seen it. It would never have shown up to her, and the bills were regular as they went along because nothing changed. They were high, but we're talking about Pinnacle, which was a older building, and we had no comparison really with any of the other ones. It wasn't really out of line, it was just a little high.
Who installed the second service from here to here?
I don't know.
Private contractor or the
Yeah.
city?
Well, the city would have had to have something to do to inspect it.
it was both of them. It was Ray's Electric and Tim, I think.
Ray's Electric and Tim.
I think. It might have been Dick. I don't know.
Do you have a chart or the calculations or anything that the council can see where the math came from?
I got one. I got one.
You asked the last month, and Judy was going to investigate. Nobody else had come to get the.
I don't know.
I've seen it.
Not my vote.
Well,
The easiest one right here that I did that would make this a little bit easier to read is here is and including the ordinance rates, an Excel spreadsheet. Why don't you keep this one? I'm going to give the other one to you that has a little bit more clarity on the monthly. You'll see, and you guys can, it's going to be you 3, I'm assuming, that are looking at it. And then when it all is said and done, I'm only giving you the facts of the matter to what you have to look at. As far as anything having to do with legality, I am not going to answer or look to any of this. I don't know how this.
City ordinance requires that you, if you have a problem with your billing, you're supposed to pay $25 to have the meters checked. Then you're supposed to, if the meters are working fine, then you have to forfeit the $25. If they're not working fine, you get your $25 back, and they make adjustments for that at that time and up to 30 days prior. And I'm not even beginning to consider that.
I'm just saying that I think Michael agreed that I came down and questioned the electric bill every month for
But that is,
3 years.
We have to take that into consideration and say this is a special, a special event that has happened, and possibly the fault of both parties as far.
Unfortunately, the meters were working like they were supposed to, they just weren't hooked up right.
Right.
And that's why I was asking who hooked it up, if it was private or city or I mean, that's one of the biggest things, as to how they came up.
All the recollection is by fact, is that you have to have the city and Joe had a private contractor hook up the heat pump. That is as far as I know at that point in time of when it occurred and not necessarily how it occurred.
And Nancy went through a lot of work going back and figuring out every billing on this, how much you were overcharged.
Here are the ones we checked. that had
And I don't think
similar
there's any doubt that you were
And
overcharged.
checked out too. and
By
I'm
what
sure that
Mike-
they were all checked out.
Mike has said you were.
And
And
everybody's correct.
And I think it's a really unfortunate
Make sure you get back.
thing. I don't know.
Because.
I personally, I feel like we should honor the request for the refund because I think that he has overpaid that much and he had, at the time,
When you request a
Different
credit to your
Just split between the three entities.
three entities,
And that is actually very doable and acceptable, not only from our power manager program, but also from the auditor, which I had a discussion with.
Bruce,
I want to be sure that that is publicly known, that we approved it and that it was.
right, and I have a problem, and Mike also here has pointed out that he has checked, the city has checked anything similar, any other oddities, and they have all checked out,
It might have
okay,
the same
that
type
may
of
have the
scenario.
same issue, right here.
Well, I think adding what Judy said, because that was something I didn't know either. That if you think you got a problem with your meter,
Yeah.
you can request. I think that would be nice to have everybody know that.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's fine, and, because we're gonna have these
It's in our-
questions come
it's in
up,
our code
people.
book.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean the public
You feel
knows
you wanna
it.
see this stuff, Bob, or have you seen enough of this?
No, I'm out of it completely.
He's Stevie Wonder on this.
The, Bruce, legalities, any issues on that?
Well, currently you have no mayor and you have no president of the council.
We need to
So the
appoint
first
one?
thing you would need to do if you're going to act on this is have a vote amongst the eligible members sitting here for an acting president of the council to conduct this portion of the meeting and call for a vote or something.
I make a motion, we temporarily appoint Judy Wilson as acting president of the council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Aye.
Aye.
And I actually, all fairness, I think Bob just asked for a motion for someone to step in.
Well, Bob has reclused himself. He doesn't want to talk about it.
I would,
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we recognized that last time.
I guess I have to ask the legality side of things, and I've got to wonder, where this was a business name, and that, sorry, but I got to ask you.
Yeah, but it wasn't always the business paying the bills, and Mike can confirm for the last year, it was all personal checks.
Okay. That, you know what I'm asking.
Mhm.
I mean, that's,
Okay. And the reason this hasn't become public sooner is because you didn't want it to.
Yeah.
So, just so this is not a big surprise to everyone.
And I don't think the city has a problem directing or agreeing to direct the refund to a certain source. If there's some complaint to be made about that, it's somewhere outside this room.
okay.
It's not the city's problem, and Joe will
Okay.
have that discussion with whoever wants to have it.
Okay.
But that, that can happen. The refund can happen in whatever form you deem appropriate.
Okay.
Essentially, you're just entering into an agreement between Joe and the city
Customer
to
names.
settle this overpay problem in this manner.
Okay.
I think probably it's, I mean, to give him the full amount is probably the right thing to do. I don't know that everybody in the city would agree that just because he waited this long, but I think he
Right
has
is right.
tried to find, I think he is tried to find avenues to correct it since the beginning.
And in all fairness, the power source was shut off and taken care of within a matter of like a month or two. It's been off for all this time,
Once you
so
found-
nothing
once
has
you-
been.
the
What
error
you
was
see is
found.
the end, what you see is the beginning, right here.
What was the issue of your $2,000 credit chargeback something?
There is, because of the circumstances in limbo, at the end of the time frame when he shut all power off, there was an outstanding $2,000 towards what he would have paid in. Had he paid in the exorbitant overcharged rate, he would have paid in $52,000. At the time of the accountability of this, it was 50,000. So there was $2,000 left in the books, and I think that, Joe, I'm not out of turn, this is what you have too in front. So there was a $2,000 is what he technically still owes us if we're looking at the total overcharge.
And that was just eliminated.
And that was just eliminated from the 15, and it was brought
That's how we
down.
got down to the 13.5.
The one sheet you have has it on an Excel, if you want to let Bruce take a look at that, and I can print you out one.
The bills are,
You want to take a look at it? You can have it, Gary. I think I've looked at it.
I'll make a motion, we approve the credit split between 3 entities that Joe has requested for 13.5.
Second.
Call for the council. We got a motion and a second.
Sorry.
You have the
Yeah.
hammer.
Sorry.
We have a motion to pay Joe through credits to the 3 entities that he has electric bills with the city for $13,500. All
Yes.
those in favor? Grant
Aye.
and Jason
Aye.
and Judy, aye. Motion carried.
I have that same problem, I always forget who he is.
I was gonna say, you guys all look at him and go.
They look at it,
What's his name?
a different
Thank you,
four-letter
guys.
word pops up, and they're just like, can't call him that. So, dude.
Well, not yet, I think you guys probably got to do something to return me the power.
Nope, it's Judy's now.
Forget it, yeah, I'm out for the rest of the year. That's all I have to do.
Do we need to do that, make a motion to return
To the
the
regular.
regular scheduled program?
I think Judy can just announce she would prefer to
I would
withdraw.
prefer to withdraw as chairman of
We'll go that way.
this time meeting.
Committee reports for the electrical upgrade.
Guess that would be me and Jason, if you want to talk about it.
Good.
I was at favor of going with the gold plan, the 7.5 or whatever that was, and after this discussion, I am comfortable saying option 2 is the best one. That is where I'm at.
I talked with the guys, we sat down for a while and talked with them, went over the different options, and they're kind of, I mean, everybody's kind of in the same boat. We know it's a problem, we know something needs to be done, but I'm not sure we're in the financial spot to be spending $5 and $6 million on it.
We'd have to bond that, wouldn't we?
We would, but the next step is they're going to do a rate study. They're going to have me do a rate study, and then basically see where we sit.
And it can be spread out over
It
some
can,
years?
and what we're looking at doing anyway, and we talked with Tim, to me, it only makes sense, and JEO actually has it split up, I think, in like 26 steps. And what it is basically,
That's in the book, man.
it's different what I'll call cable routes in town. The weak areas, what has to be done throughout, and, you know, like we said, this doesn't necessarily have to be a cut and dry, this step has to happen first. There can be things that change, time frame can change, you know, because JEO knows now that they've been in here, and that was, I guess, my goal for doing the study and having JEO come in is tell us where the weak spots are, tell us what needs to be done.
Is that our next step then, really, is to have that done?
They've already done it. I mean,
Oh, okay.
that's what the book was. I mean, that's
Yeah.
where they.
And they've got the cost steps all broken out. They did the most work in option 2 because, like I think you said, that was the one they figured we would go with.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't necessarily have to do it all shotgun start, go. I mean, we do it all in different phases, and we can actually wait.
And that was the one that didn't have
Did not have the separate substation up.
but had a new one here.
Had a new one here, and we have to, because there's some things that have to happen here, step-up transformers, stuff like that for the voltage out the generators and things. We haven't even talked with NPPD yet about.
But you've got them working now on a rate study as to what it would
Me,
do.
they were going to talk.
We're gonna be, and I think Tim was gonna go, if he hasn't, I will make sure that the meeting, that that is something.
Just by raw math that we've seen so far, increase your debt service by 10 times.
Right.
I think the rate study will be real interesting.
I think we're gonna have to prove it though, I mean, that's the
Yeah.
purpose of the rate study. Just for the fact, because we got to talking, I mean, the electrical, yeah, it's the most obvious, but our sewer and our water lines, everything, all the infrastructure in town is going to need something. So I guess myself personally, I hate to see us put all our eggs in one basket, bond ourselves to the hill, and then
Right.
have something else happen. That'd be ugly.
got a sewer, we need.
So you're talking about multiple bond issues?
Possibly, yeah. Do it in different phases, and this could be stretched out over the next 15 years, let's say. I mean, we could do, like we were saying, one of the biggest things is the H-frames going east of the city office. You know, feed that part of town. That's
The nice
one
thing
of the
is
worst
interest is as low as it's gonna be.
areas. Yeah. But,
The other thing to consider from a general safety standpoint, I mean, policy decisions are not my call, but if they truly have a few $100,000 of upgrades needed inside the plant, to not find somebody fried into an imprint on the wall in there someday, that might be a high priority item.
and that's one of those
Isn't
things.
it cheaper just to rehire?
We have we have co-opportunity.
And I'm sure we can get accidental death and dismemberment.
And that's one of the things JEO, I mean, we'll come back to them. Yes, the switchgear needs to be changed out and everything, but their reason for changing out the switchgear was because of the voltage change, not necessarily the safety.
True.
I mean, it's old, it's wore out.
Unless Mike asks you to come to the power plant and flip a certain switch, just don't say no.
Flip it back.
Yeah.
No, remember the city put new cameras in back there, so when Mike's back there with the screwdriver, you guys will get all kinds of pictures of
I
it.
always picture the guys when we first fired up Husker Ag, and the fellow that was in charge of turning on the power to the plant had a 12-foot fiberglass pole and rubber gloves that ran up to his shoulder. And he threw the switch with that. Maybe you should just get one of those to use here.
I'm scared to be within a foot, and I think that's what
But,
one thing that Grant, and then this is just for FYI, what Bruce put out, and I thought was pretty good, back in '83, that was a good standard to look at. We switched from a, help me out, Delta to a Y, a WYE system. We're almost in that same cycle, and now we're switching everything over from a 4160 to a
12 or 7 or something.
7 or 12.
12 or 7, I think it is.
Yeah, and so a lot of the transformers we're getting now, currently, even our pad mounts, even for the Darnells that were here, that pad mount has both sides. Because it's like you're still working with 4160, but you know all the new stuff's coming in on that 71 whatever in that. So I mean the changes are coming. I mean in a different way. So it was interesting. It was a very interesting read.
Because the biggest thing is we're going to have to change out every pole mount, every pad mount transformer out there in town is going to have to be changed for the new voltage. Well, which is
If
nice.
we do that, can we number these? Number the poles? I just think that would make
Just like
the upkeep.
you and I talked about,
Right.
that's like telephone industry.
Right.
I mean, everything's got a number on it, a route on it. But the one thing is that I was surprised about was Jake said any transformers are buying half for a while, even the pole mounts, they're buying dual voltage, just for the fact that the price difference isn't that much. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's as easy as swinging a couple of
We
weeks.
were proactive.
Yeah.
I want to see that in the paper.
Honestly, I do thank both of them coming in. To be honest, I let them stay with Tim and Jake, and I backed out. I already have seen it. I know. I went back into my office so they could actually. They brought in wire samples and some of that.
So next step though is the means rate study?
Yep.
Okay, like, do you need a motion for us to tell you, please do that?
I think you have, unless you want a motion, but I mean, I think you told me to do it right there.
I would be fine,
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and do that.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made and seconded to do the rate study. Judy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Grant? Aye. All right.
Nobody did ask, but it is free because we're a member of me. So
Well, yeah, whatever steps need to be taken to move it along. We'll, at some point, I suppose definitely, but I would like to see a little more detail, if it's from the engineers or from who, is about the financing. How would it be done? What can we do?
We need options.
That's what I told Mike. You know, I don't know enough about bonding and stuff like that. I honestly don't. I know our US things.
Yeah.
You know, and what's urgently that needs to be done to, and what's the groundwork, what order does this get done in?
I think they've got, JEO has that spelled out pretty well in your packet.
Okay.
My biggest thing was just, how do we go about paying for it? How do we bond,
Now, as a practical matter, you can ask Treechek when you get him up here if he's talking about paving bonds, but they would call it an electrical bond, but in a small town, they very, very seldom will take a dedicated revenue stream for a bond. They want a general bond on the whole city. You can call it an electrical bond if you want, but they write it up as a general bond. I mean, if it was strictly an electrical bond and the electrical income didn't pay the bond, well, then the bondholders are just stuck. Well, they can't sell those in a town as small as Plainview. So they want a general bond. And they would do anything from $500,000 up and do it with handsprings. They want the business and they get their 2% or whatever they get and they're tickled to do it.
You know, the other thing I wondered about is there, what do you want to call it? Would there be like rural electric grant money out there? Is there anything for the small economic development? Back to that again.
And that's a good question. The answer is no, and here's why. They'll bond, or they'll
For
grant.
an industrial park, yes.
If you do it on a construction, electrical grants are unheard of. They just don't mess with electric. All other utilities, they'll bond, or they'll, I keep saying bond, they'll grant whatever your needs are. You got a sewer problem, you got a water problem, you got any of this, but electrical, they will not.
I would look into that sewer then, because like we talked about, I think we all know the sewer needs, we gotta start talking about it and looking for answers now.
Well, and that would be a good thing to start looking for funding, because those grant dollars dry up fast.
But, and understand, and I know they told you, but understand for 5 years, that's why we have been rehabilitating every year, 30,000 in, you know, to make sure, because that's what you've got to do. I mean, I agree with you.
I'm pretty familiar with that. I think the wells and the pumps and stuff at the wells are going to be a bigger problem probably than the sewer are within the next 5 years.
Our problem with getting grants for that, guys, is our water's gonna test too clean. I just sat through this in Hater last night.
It's a clean thing, not necessarily an infrastructure
It's
thing.
a microbes and, what's the next C word?
Nitrates.
Nitrates and,
Yeah, and there is a little bit of problem. We still can work on
That's what it
the
is.
funding, but in grant world, in the CDBGs, what they like to do is they prioritize your need. And if you've got a town who's been sitting on a danger list for several years and that, they seem to elevate a little higher. We were on that list with the lagoon.
yeah, but now your lagoon's so clean that we probably won't qualify for that. Which,
What a freaking catch-22.
well, but like, look at Hater, they had to have
Nitrates,
20% have bad nitrates, or what was that word again? Cuneiform. Those have to show up, then they can get grant money to drill a well in the same place that they have the nitrate problem.
Okay.
It's proactive, and we are. I mean, we'll take one
So I mean,
utility.
the rehabilitation is good, and it needs to continue.
Yeah.
But you know it's gonna come sooner or later, or if it needs to be the pumps, then it needs to be the pumps, whatever.
Biggest thing, like we said, is, you know, the infrastructure when the town was created back in the day was basically all built at the same time, so now everything's going to start to fail about the same time.
I know I need to move on, but I do want to give you a little bit of bright news. The water system, you could be in a lot worse trouble. We have 4 wells, 3 wells are operable, the one was shut down, plus a water tower that progressively this town invested in to have to even out water pressure and quality of the water. You could be like a town like Scribner who had 1 well, no water tower, and that went down.
Well, look at McLean and Magnet are now buying water from Ewing or somewhere.
On the roll thing, sure, it could be.
Did we get that other well turned back on? Or?
We can't. We can test it out, but it's right now, it's better off just leaving it as is and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Can we get just update us on that next month, or is that, when will that change, I guess?
As long as we don't need it, I don't want it to change. I mean,
It's been off for how long now?
Is it? Okay, I'm sorry, I
That's
didn't.
the
It's a high nitrate tested. We call it the Cal Fluky well.
It's been over a year, right?
Okay.
Oh, it's been almost as long as me.
Right.
I was gonna say, it's been off for a while.
It's been off since.
And
4
so
or
we're
5
just,
years.
okay, well, never mind.
If you're talking about being proactive on nitrates, the other thing from the state standpoint is they would love to come out from DHHS and tell you all about how you can establish public awareness, testing, protect our water program, try and talk the farmers within 10 miles into taking it a little easy on the fertilizer and minding their manners. You can establish a district and enforce it if you need to.
Okay.
Yeah, on the other hand, if you wait too long, like Creighton did, then you're just toast and you build $1 million plant and try to pry the nitrates out as they go by.
We are in a wellhead protection area, like Bruce is saying, but we do not have a wellhead protection plan. Could we do that? But that'll include going out to the farmers.
Well, at least have some hearings, publish some notices, try and get some
That might be something to
cooperation.
look into, though.
Yeah, it might be.
Well, if you lose 2 more wells to nitrates, suddenly this gets pretty serious.
And I've seen the rates that Norfolk will charge, so.
Well, I wanna look into that then, Mike, and I know you got a lot on your plate, but can the council agree that maybe Mike can look into the wellhead protection, things like this?
It's already set up. Tim's done a good job. Tim and I worked on a wellhead protection plan.
Okay, but
to put in place.
Yeah, and then what did you say? You said, but you haven't done.
It's a plan. We
Uh-huh.
haven't done the protection plan to get us in with DEQ. Basically, because we haven't needed with the nitrates. Our water, it's been rising, but it's been actually not that bad. We're right around 6. One of the wells is still 5, and the other one maybe tickling 7. And, ask Creighton, even with the water.
And then when it hits 10, you spend $1.5 million and
Exactly.
$100,000 a year to take care of it.
So,
Do you stop buying corn so they won't be having such a high price?
There you go.
See, and then that keeps all the nitrates levels down. It's a double-edged sword.
Need more organic farmers.
That would be, you are absolutely right.
I saw you sitting out there. I wasn't going to go there.
I forgot he was out there.
It's funny that should come up now.
You can come and speak at all the meetings.
Let me pull you up a chair.
When you talk Rick Christensen into it, we'll buy you an extra turkey for Christmas. Or something like that.
He's next up on the agenda.
So can we move forward on the plan or whatever?
Yeah, I mean,
Needs to happen.
it's basically, we can go ahead and if you want, somebody wants to.
Start doing the notices, start doing whatever we have to do
Mhm.
before,
It's another small project, but it's in comparison to what we're doing, it's pretty small.
okay. And I understand, Mike, you're busy, but update, whatever you need to do, so.
Approval of Keno grant, Northeast Nebraska RC&D.
I think you have representatives here, and I think, Joe, from the last meeting, there were some questions you had. And I talked to Jan Jorgensen this afternoon, and I think both Dennis and Jim can answer to both of them, whichever one wants to take it first, I think.
What's the question?
Yeah, first the question, did you have a question about profit? Is somebody making a profit off this?
I asked the question about the.
I did.
Okay, sorry, Dan.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how you get, since you guys were gone last time. I wondered, I know, like Jim, in your case, where you actually have a business doing this, in most cases, it's not and maybe I have no idea how your structure is going to be set up on this, I guess. The one thing we've always had problems with is, when it comes to Keno grants, is giving Keno money away if it's helping basically a business. In your case, it's a business. Can you educate me a little bit on how this is going to be set up?
Well, I guess you might say that, I don't know. You've got several vendors coming in to sell produce to the local people.
Do you have certain days and times
There's
that,
money
John?
made, excuse me.
Do you have certain days and times picked out?
We're going to do it, it's in that grant that Jan wrote. It'll be on Wednesday mornings from 9 o'clock till noon. It'll be every Wednesday morning from 9 o'clock till noon. And from June to October,
Bless you. Just on Wednesday mornings?
just on Wednesday mornings. Most every, unless you're in Norfolk or some larger city where you have a large population, you usually only have one farmer's market in an area for 1 day a week.
Well, like Pierce does theirs on,
Friday,
Friday nights.
yeah.
And that seems to draw quite a bit. I was just wondering if a weekend might not work better.
Or evening.
Well,
Yeah, or an evening, because I know everybody in this room is at work between 9 and noon on a Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm interested. I would definitely go, and I would not be able to make those hours.
Wednesday morning is acceptable to the vendors that are coming there. I mean, a lot of them go to more than one farmer's market. They go to Pierce, and they go to Creighton, and they go to party. And Wednesday morning was, the people I talked to that would probably participate there, including myself, Wednesday morning is a much better morning. And just for example, I set up one Wednesday morning downtown, just selling mostly tomatoes. I had other vegetables because I had an excess. I was going to be gone on Friday to be able to go to Pierce. And I sold all the tomatoes that I brought, which was 4 bread trays full.
Did you look at this?
That was with no advertising or anything. We called about 4 people on the social center, and
Like I said, I think it's a great idea. I just don't know everybody I know's got jobs that.
yeah.
I
Well,
don't
the
even know
great, we
anybody
used
that
to
could
do
come
it
down
from
and buy
7 o'clock in the morning till usually it was noon, but we didn't get out of there till 1 o'clock because all the people that had jobs would rush down there during break or before they went to work or over the lunch hour.
Well, and that's why I'm wondering if that 9 to noon just kind of paints you into a corner where.
Well, I mean,
Working people can't get.
Most farmers markets, except for probably Norfolk, like the mall area, is in Pierce, it's 5 o'clock to sell out. When you run out, or when nobody comes, you leave. And we could make it that.
well,
We could make it to sell out, and it's usually around noon or 1 o'clock.
Did you just look at this, Jim, as more of a starting point? Because the customers on that first year, and Dennis, you might, when you do this, is it not necessarily to go full-fledged, but kind of like a test site? Because you only got like 40 customers that you anticipate per,
Vendors.
no, customers. It looks like,
Yeah, she put down 10 vendors and 40 customers.
kind of like just a starting point, and if it needed to change, it could change, right? This isn't,
Well, yeah.
this isn't etched in stone.
It's just an estimate to fill in that question, number of persons people serve, so.
Sure.
I think she's being conservative on that number possibly, but.
And then I wanted to point out to both of you guys that there's some USDA farmers market grants out there too. If you want to expand this a little bit.
talk to
And
the
I can
economic
get
developer.
Where?
I'll get the info to Mike, so if you want to stop down and see Mike, I'll make sure he has it for you.
And I know Sandy,
Well, the
Joe
reason
and
I,
worked on it.
we even brought this up, after selling tomatoes down in the,
Well, I think everybody here thinks a farmer's market's a good
I
idea.
was inundated with calls at home. People, they've been bugging me, and in fact, Mike and I have talked about it a couple of years ago, and I've been asked to set up a farmer's market in Plainview. There was one set up several years ago, and it kind of just fell by the wayside over time. But I got all kinds of calls of people wanting a farmer's market in Plainview, and they said, well, why don't you set one up? And the RC&D it's shady. It's got trees out there you can set up. You're not sitting out in the hot sun. The customers aren't necessarily have to be in the hot sun. And in the morning, it's a little cooler than in the late afternoon. And that's what started this, and I went down to RC&D and asked if they would support one there, and they took it to the board, and
It's a natural fit to the RC&D. We've been promoting farmers markets and market moms food for years already, so we welcomed the idea that it would be a natural fit, and it's to serve the public and our local producers, so,
the idea.
Jim is donating his time to organize it.
That was the other question.
It's in-kind donation for him. Sure, he'll profit from selling some stuff too, but.
Just from a selfish request, consider maybe a Wednesday night once a month, so I can come down and buy stuff.
I'll make a motion to approve the grant.
All you gotta do is give me a call, and I'll deliver it.
Oh, there you go. That I can do.
I'll take a pickup load of mulch.
I was gonna say, I got his number on speed dial.
I'll send it, Jason.
the main reason for the grant is a sign and get some advertising out. After that, we will charge each vendor a nominal fee
It's
for the year.
a great
for the vendor
location,
for the
great
whole
idea, guys, it
season,
really
and
is.
not just put it in a farmer's market bank account. And then the next year, we'll use that money for advertising.
So hopefully it's just a one-time.
It's basically a one-time thing.
All right, we've got a motion made and seconded, I believe it was.
Yep.
All right, Judy?
Well, tell us what it was, I didn't hear.
I motion to approve the grant.
I'll say aye.
Okay. Judy says aye. Joe?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
And Grant?
Aye.
All right, motion passed.
So is this for last time's deal?
We're not doubling your grant. That was a good try. That's a really fancy farmer's market down there. What's going on? It's got a sign. Yeah.
Make a motion, we approve the CDBG claims.
Second.
Sorry?
Any more discussion on that, Judy?
I just want to say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Eager voters.
Aye.
Grant?
Aye.
All right, motion carried.
And approve the third read, I want to make a motion to approve the third reading of ordinance 916.
I'll second it.
All right, motion made and seconded to approve third reading of ordinance 916. Judy?
Aye.
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jason? Grant?
Aye.
You got any appointments?
What?
You got any appointments?
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
Oh, I do.
Oh, that's even funnier. No, I don't. Yes, you do.
Library board had contacted Jody Verterna. I think you were aware of that, Judy. Did you know that? They contacted Jody Verterna at the bank and she said yes. And if that's all right with your consent,
Library board?
library board.
She's for the library board, good. That sounds like, that would be
I
good.
make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made and seconded to approve. Judy, go ahead.
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Grant?
Aye.
All right, everyone back up.
You guys have
Melissa,
any
you
idea
keeping
what
up with all this?
I am,
Okay.
actually.
Do we have a pool or park board?
Pool Park Board? Do we-
No, and I will start, they won't meet until April, but I'll start the discussion so that they can get someone in place by the April meeting.
Did we get things ordered?
Yep.
Discussion and action on library update. Judy, do you have something on library update? No.
I don't know.
The only library update, we just had the meeting the other day, and the main library update is, I think I put in the packet, was the pre-application for the $375,000 grant that Terry Meyer and I are gonna work on, so, yes, and they did form a grant funding committee, and I don't know if she shared that with you last night, but anyway, the committee put together a very nice group of outsiders are looking at this. There's about 7 of them, I believe, and I think they'll do some good fundraising. They're going to do it the right way. Next step on the library is the huge cost, and I told them, back up, slow down just a hair, is the second phase of JDO. And now you're going to be talking about they work together with the board to get your bids and get everything ready for the construction part
Have
of
they
it.
submitted a lead foundation grant yet?
That is on the process. Before you do that, we want to make sure we have the ducks in a row, because Lee won't even talk to us until we have some funding in place. I think we're there.
I thought lead will help pay for the design and engineering of it.
No, they'll do a building brick, and basically they want in on it. They don't want the design and engineering. They want to go ahead, when you've got that design and engineering ready, if you've got a $1 million project, they'll split. They'll do a 50-50 cost with you. And as long as she stays alive, we're doing good. So, and if you know the gal, she's in her upper 80s right now. So,
Thanks.
Okay.
she likes Nebraska stuff.
But did you find out anything about bonds?
I called John Trezak. I'm waiting for a phone call back, and I actually sent him an email as well, Judy, asking him that specific question. I said I need to know the chicken and egg thing. So I expect to have it. If I assume I get the answer, I will call you even tomorrow if I can get an answer from John.
Be a lot easier to get along with the lead. Paying
Oh, absolutely. And of course, this $375,000 will punch it up a little bit too.
Moving forward. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Discussion and action on model ordinances discussed at January meeting.
Yeah, so tell me, how many of you brought your packet of ordinance? I have.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Bruce, just tell us yes or no. Come on, man.
I highlighted a few things.
If you recall, there were still 2 or 3 that are uncertain. What I've prepared here is a generic ordinance like the American legal people normally furnish. I don't know why they didn't this time. But a generic ordinance saying we're adopting this package of ordinances to bring the code, the city code, into conformance with state law. You can do that. If you do it in a block and pass the one big one, you can say we're going to adopt this whole pile of fixes. And then if you recall, that's why some folks arguing on the city's behalf said that's what they wanted to do, because then you don't have to publish each individual ordinance, which a lot of folks wouldn't read anyway. On the other hand, some of these are fairly significant, and maybe people need to know about them. Every time we turn our head, somebody says, well, nobody knew that was the rule in Plainview. Well, that's what publishing ordinances is all about, if anybody will read it. But I have here a couple packets of the whole batch. I was thinking, hand one down for Mike and Melissa to have in hand. Or you've got, well, I've got these reorganized and renumbered, so take one of those so you guys can at least cross off or check off those as I do. And I think you folks, if you don't have your copies, can kind of just remember what we talked about. Heather, my secretary, because she is somewhat anal about having everything neat and clean, had to reorganize the piles so that they were adopted in order that they go in the code book. So I had to restack them to make this sense of this. But on the, she was determined. She said, I need to put these in the order that they're going to fine. So they're slightly different than the order they were in the old packet. That's why I gave you a new packet. But the first of them would amend section 1101. That's the business about the mayor, and would say it would change the mayor's authority to vote from only to break a tie to if it's necessary for a majority. I mean, that's, you gotta kind of bend your mind around that, but it makes sense occasionally. And maybe it's a good thing. Essentially, it puts the mayor in a voting position like a chairman of the board in a village. And I think the legislature's belief was little cities are more like villages than they are like Omaha. And maybe you should just do that. Just have the mayor able to vote when it creates a majority. So that's what that is. It's on the list, or if you want to throw it out, you can throw it out. But that's the first one. The second one, 1203, the city clerk, it just restates the duties of the city clerk and kind of reorganizes the clerk's ordinance in the code book and brings it up to precisely what the state statute now says. That's probably good and not controversial. You pass that, Lori Reed, you ought to read it.
And we did, Lori and I went through this, and absolutely, it's
Yeah.
non-controversial.
And same way, the next one would amend 1204, does much the same thing for the city treasurer, which in Plainview, of course, is all the same thing, and it's non-controversial. The next one, 1301, on bonding and the requirements for bonds, it tears up our current bond ordinance and totally reorganizes it, but doesn't do a lot different. And it just says, instead of stating specific bonds, it says you can do bonds at least the minimums required by state law, and it reorganizes it according to match up to the statute better. pretty much, again, non-controversial.
Well, the question I had on that, Bruce, and that, because I do really find, I mean, you've set these up, and it pretty well is what we have in the code book anyway. Do you
90%
think-
of each of them is still what we have in the code
Right,
book.
do we need
That's
this
why
one
you
with the bond?
Well, it's a little different, and it does what the package says. It brings the city code into conformance with state law. They've tweaked some small portions of how you define the bonds for state law, and I think it's well done to have the city code say the same thing. I mean, we could go through it line by line, but I don't think it'd be worth your while. The American legal people screwed up some of the section references, and I changed them in those copies you have there.
Okay.
So the section references are correct for our code. They talked about some numbers that they must have left on their computer from the last time they did it. The next one is how you read and pass ordinances. And that really just tweaks that section to fit with that other section on mayor. The mayor can vote when he would be in a majority to pass an ordinance, rather than the mayor to vote only for a tie. So it kind of matches up with that other mayor vote ordinance. The next one, budget statements. Now that one is arguably a little bit controversial, or you at least have to pay attention. I mean, the state law now says that cities our size can do annual or biennial budgets. This would adopt the new state law and just say Plainview can do annual or biennial budgets. It doesn't pick. It just says we can. And you would need to remember to have that conversation when it comes to budget time. What do we want to do here? Do we want to try and make a 2-year budget? I mean, you've always made 1-year budgets.
I would say keep it annually.
Well, you can still do that, but this makes the city code conform to state law and says.
Right, but could we add to that as
See,
of
and
now?
I wouldn't, Joe, and here's why, but you're fine. I think your reasoning is spot on, but I went through this with a fine tooth comb. There is no reason for a class 2 like ourselves to, unless we really drop off the face of the earth, to look at a class, or look at biennially, and because so many things change along the ways,
Yeah, that
you
was
have to
my fear.
amend, you'd be amending more than you'd ever want to. Some villages, and this probably would work for them, when it was like some villages who do a percentage, like 2% every year, to do a
Good.
biennial.
This is designed to fit small cities.
Right.
But all it does is state the possibility, which matches up with state law. It's possible. It doesn't say you're adopting either course.
And I was just asking if we need to put in there what ours is, or do we?
Well, we could just cross out biennial on all spots of this and just say, by God, Plainview's gonna stay annual.
Right. And I don't have a problem with it, because I'm not gonna change. Anybody that has studied like with the budget and that, you're crazy to go with a biennial budget, because you're asking for too much time to alter. You're trying to predict things 2 years out, and you may not
I don't
have
think we
that.
have anyone picking money for small towns that have a little tiny budget, they're not.
Like a $200,000, $300,000
Yeah.
annual budget.
Well, do you wanna have an agreement that you want me to reprint that to remove biennial for the standard
Yeah,
adoption?
I would.
We can still say it brings us up to date properly, but we're just not gonna mention biennial?
Would that have to be a separate then vote on that?
Well, as long as everybody understands what the form is gonna be, I think we
Okay.
can still adopt the number.
Good.
That would be my thought.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna remove biennial in 1802 and reprint. Well, we may type that up. I mean, this is the stuff those guys furnish. We haven't even printed most of it. This is the language from them. But you're entitled to adopt it in whatever form you want, and I think it still fits reasonably under the we're gonna conform to state law thing. Okay, so we'll just remove biennial, otherwise it is the updated form.
And I'm perfectly fine, and I think you'd want that for any city administrator,
Yeah.
at least at this size.
The next one is an ordinance that just states some new definitions. In fact, it defines what a biennial budget is. It defines what public funds are. The public funds thing is probably significant. The definition of biennial doesn't really hurt anything. At that point, you haven't adopted it. I'd be inclined to just use it. just definitions, even though we're not gonna say we're gonna do biennial budgets.
But I did highlight that one, just so you guys keep squared up that on public funds, one of the things that's interesting in your definition is to understand like the hospital sale money. You know, one of the things, that's public funds, but on the other hand, it's non-tax funds. So, you know, that now becomes, including non-tax money, has to be incorporated into the budget as you do it, because you actually have that as an asset or as a fund. You know, so that's where they talk about what constitutes a public fund. That would be something that would
There
be
goes our
different.
light.
Yeah, you cannot go on Hawaii.
Fine.
I thought we'd go develop with Roger next year.
Right.
Yeah, development meeting.
Right.
I just did income tax for a little family farm corporation of 6 brothers and sisters today. Their annual meeting expense was $21,000.
For their annual meeting.
I said, you know, you guys must be eating pretty good, and what did you go to, like Hawaii or what? You know, you're gonna have to limit that eventually. You might consider the same with the development company fund.
Did you find out where they went?
I didn't wanna know.
2-week cruise.
It seemed like a lot. The next one on budget and how you adopt a budget and how you certify a budget, that again is just straight conform to state law. You need to pass that one. It just kind of brings things up to date. And the next one is 1804, and again, that's just more details of how you adopt your budget and what you do with it. So I think that needs to go. 80401 is the next one, expenditures prior to adoption of a budget. And that talks about at the end of one fiscal year, in the beginning of the next fiscal year, how you manage, keeping track of what goes in one year and the other year. I don't see it as a problem. Just a nice little update on how that should happen. And the final one is a restatement of how to manage weeds, litter, and nuisances and notices to abate. And the state added to the weed letter formula an appeal process. I think they got challenged in court in Omaha, and I think the finding was you gotta give some right to talk to somebody about this. You can't always just have to do what somebody said in a letter with no grounds to appeal. I would hope we don't see a lot of that, but it's the new state law about how you manage weed letters, so.
I'm afraid that's gonna be an issue with
We need to adopt it.
side number property going forward.
That could be. Do we think Doug Hall's got that now?
We know Doug Hall's got that now.
I can take care of that.
Okay.
Roger said that too.
Don't cooperate.
I'll make the
So
motion,
that-
Roger, for steal a Doug.
Yeah.
Let's make a motion so the building's been bought?
Yes.
So,
Yea or nay?
that being the case, here then is the ordinance you would be acting on. And to clear down and get one down right.
And you said we can just, as a group, do it?
Well, that's what this is.
Okay.
Instead of passing all those one at a time, if they all come pretty close to meeting the we're just gonna conform to the mandatory state law changes, then we're gonna do this. And like I said, at least the office didn't send me one of these. If there was one in the packet, I don't know. But we had another one in the system and just updated it.
Do we have a number?
I do not. We actually have numbers on all these individually, but if
Right.
you're not gonna pass them individually, the first of the numbers
And I believe,
was 920, I think, unless you used it for something else.
no, and in fact, that's what Lori, the last thing she
And
reported.
this, you know, if we did them one at a time or pick around, it's like 920 through 928. But if you just wanna do it, this one would become 920.
I'll make the motion that we approve 920, amending all the different ordinances for the city code book.
You don't think the power and duties is too much for a mayor to have? I mean, I know it's a small town, but.
No,
that
in
might-
fact, I went through that with a fine tooth comb, and I think that I thought, after I looked at it more and more, I thought it was a prudent move that they did, even for the size of town we have, maybe not for Omaha, but you never know when that,
Just
vote
like, let's say
goes on.
two of us are gone, and then you two would vote on something, but
Yeah.
you technically wouldn't have a majority, so he could go ahead and vote and make it 3-0.
Right, but let's say hypothetically, let's just say, and I'm just tossing this out, it's some motion, something that you two are so trying to fight, and so you're not even here because of that, and then that just eliminates power of the council. Council's role is to pass laws, mayor's just to run the meeting. I'm just kind of, I'm a poli-sci nerd about shit like this, pardon my French. I'm saying it gives a lot of, you don't know what situation giving that to the mayor will blow up in your face. I'm not saying that.
Well, I think the legislature, I'm sure, had that debate. I think their conclusion was it will more likely be helpful more often than it will be hurtful.
Okay.
I mean, you do run in once in a while to some disaster, somebody's got a broken leg, somebody's in St. Louis, and you need to do something. And, you know, it's
That just
worthwhile
makes
for
that feasible.
Yes.
I second the motion on the table.
All right, motion made and seconded to pass ordinance number 920.
Grant.
Aye.
Judy? Joe?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Grant? Aye. All right, motion,
All right.
You guys don't agree with it, formal policy.
I will,
Well, I'm probably just being paranoid.
I will clean up that one,
Well, good, we did.
Mike, Melissa, I will clean up that one on the biennial
Okay.
and blink that word out of existence in 1802 and we'll reprint.
Is that the only one that we actually really did?
That's the only one to change the text on, yeah.
I think Judy's got a lot of objections to 919.
She's got a whole list over here.
Okay.
Well, now the paving district one
What?
is
Yeah, I know.
worthy of some more discussion if you think you got a minute. I was sort of the opinion in looking at it that you couldn't tell what the hell he was talking about without a map. I kind of like maps.
Sure. Maps.
So here is a little of my effort, my little Heather's. There is,
You can't have your own
yeah, thank God she was around. I only made enough of these to share like 2 and 2. Joe,
Okay.
hold one and you look and.
I've actually, and I've got them now, so.
Yeah, you don't have these though.
Are these good ones?
These are better.
These are Bruce's maps.
Yours is in crayon. On a napkin.
That, the first one is for 214-1, but let's get them all out on the table. The second one is for 214-2. Well, there's enough, that there's
Judy,
like
if you're
3
here
or
for
4
this discussion,
spares.
you wanna come on up and
Do you
see
wanna
what's
see
different?
these?
You're the only one in here, we're not, if you wanna see these different districts.
So I do.
Here's the third one that's for District 3.
This is
Here's the
democracy.
fourth one that's for District 4. And here's the fifth one that's for District 5.
I don't know about you guys, I'm a little disappointed they're not taped together already.
I expected better, Bruce.
Sorry.
Can you?
Yeah, there's nothing.
Now, what you've
I
got,
think we all could have called that one.
what you've got in the packet is just a copy of the ordinance adopting. So if the ordinance that, the 919 that you're proposing to pass, Section 2, the first page, does West Street from Lincoln Avenue to Euclid. And then it defines the district that surrounds that. So on the map that I got 14-1,
Yep.
West Street from Lincoln to Euclid is yellow. That's the chunk that he has defined as being the piece to fix. From the city limits down to, if I picture that correctly, the street into the ball field. That's how far down the thing is supposed to go, huh?
Yes.
So there's the street. The district described on the front of the ordinance, I didn't really believe that you would all read that and draw your own picture.
Right.
So the district is delineated with the orange line. That would be the district. The street to be paved would be in yellow. And the stuff within the orange line is what you would then consider for assessment. You're entitled to decide later what part of that is benefited and how much, and who's gonna have to pay for this street. So you take that 600 feet of street is gonna cost $120,000 or something like that. Cut it in half, $60,000 for each side, about $100 a foot, and assess it to the property owners. the property owners are gonna care. And you gotta be prepared to have that discussion. But that's what that district is, and that's what that street is. On the next one. On this 2, I think Treechek screwed up his description some.
Did he?
Well, he says he's gonna pave 4th Street from Euclid to Grant Avenue. Well, that goes across the center of that hollow block in the College Edition.
There's a street there.
There's a street there. There's this platted street there. There's not on my map.
There's a house on each side of that street.
Well, that's what he says.
That's right behind my house.
I know that. I didn't go up there and look, but the street, the actual graded street goes through.
Yeah,
Do you
Fourth
think?
Street, Fourth Street's a
Well,
through street.
before they do this, I think we should maybe go see if that's ever been created as a street, because it sure as hell doesn't show on the plat map. Did the engineers give him these descriptions?
Yeah, JEO did, but I thought it was on the plat map.
Okay, well,
Yes,
maybe
right.
there's an updated plat of that block that shows that map. Okay, but that's, the street would go all the way through, that 2 blocks, and the district would be in orange. So in that case, maybe it's okay, if we believe the street is actually a platted street.
What little I have here, and I'll double check on it, Bruce, it is platted all the way to Euclid.
Well, I know it's through, but I didn't know if it was platted. I didn't have any, and I didn't go to Pierce and research it. You'd think the engineers would have.
Yeah.
The description says from Euclid to Grant Avenue. So that's probably okay. 3, and again, if you're, if you go through the ordinance, they've got the description in the ordinance is section 4, and it's West Street from Locust approximately 400 feet south.
So that's coming from the
Across in front of the
Legion.
Legion and the propane company.
We've talked about that one for years.
Yeah, and the description of the district is a real awkward tax lot, zig up the railroad right away, but it just goes around both sides of that street that you might assess for that project. But again, if that's 400 feet, that's 40,000 per side, 40,000 by my definition for Steinkraus and Schaefer Grain, and 40,000 for the Legion Club and the propane company. They're gonna care.
Yeah. You can quickly have money for that.
So, I mean,
That's a lot of burgers.
if you pass this and adopt this district, you don't have to pave it. You're still gonna bid it, you're still gonna do whatever. But that's what the thing says. And somebody is gonna have to pay attention eventually. The city can stand whatever part of it you can stand if you're willing to general bond it and figure out a different way to pay it. But if you're gonna assess it, the property owners care. Okay, next one. 4.
And after you finish with that, I do have a question on that, so.
And that's a main entrance into town.
Well, I'll go ahead and get the question out now, because I understand what you're saying, Bruce, and absolutely, but we're still gonna go forward any way we can. Can you, on different districts, and you're not trying to pinpoint people, but if West Street can handle more residences and the footage and assess a higher, do you have to assess all these districts the same?
No.
Foot?
No.
So you can take the assessment.
The council,
Each district can be assessed.
the council has the discretion to decide how much this improvement benefits the adjoining property, as opposed to how much it benefits the town. And if you say a third of it benefits the adjoining property, and the town ought to eat half of it, because this is a major entrance that beats the street to pieces,
Exactly.
then the town pays it.
Well,
And you can tell the property owners there then, well, how about you guys don't object, because we're gonna pick up 2/3 of the cost of your paving.
My opinion is every one of these falls under that category.
Well,
Because that's why
some
we're
of 'em-
finally paving it.
Some of them do, but then you gotta bond it and the city's gotta pay for it.
but, and I'm talking particularly on that, the section we just did, because that is a unique
That
situation.
West Street,
Entrance into town.
and so is the other end. I mean,
The other one is more, but it has
it's
residences.
more
in it,
residential up there.
Whereas the other one is really just a kitty corner to the
That's
Legion, and there's
It
not much
really
there.
does almost no benefit to the Legion and the propane company.
Exactly.
very little benefit to, well, some to Schaefer Grain, they got the heavy trucks coming in there. But you
I think
still,
when we pave it, they'll reopen that steakhouse.
well, it wouldn't hurt.
Two burger next week.
Okay, 4
They already got spaghetti going. don't they?
4 is the street north of Dollar General. North of Dollar General and Watson,
Oh, right behind it?
on the north side. The gravel street.
Yeah.
Is
Dollar
that right?
General kind of asking for that, is that what?
What's that?
Is Dollar, normally on?
Yeah, the definition,
Well, they're gonna need trucks to deliver
the
stuff.
definition is Pilcher from 3rd to 4th.
Incessant.
And the orange
Welcome to
line,
Plainview.
the orange line defines the district. So they're suggesting the district would affect essentially the north half of the Watson building, the north half of the Dollar General property, and the other surrounding people. That's an interesting call, as whether that, and the other thing there, Mike, the plat, at least the old plat, shows that the street is not full width. That's another one we ought to ask the engineers
You
about.
know,
It's
yeah,
family
that
dollar,
may
by the
be,
way, not
you're right.
Yeah, that one.
At Watson's.
I knew that. But I think the engineers, maybe they've looked,
And I'll look at it too, because you're right. It-
but if it's not platted full width, we can't pave it full width.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah, where do you guys,
Now because we-
how old is this map, Bruce? Where's Casey's on this thing?
On number 4, where you're showing the Dollar General and, or Family Dollar, and
Yes.
that next block would be Casey's, but it shows 12 residential lots.
What does that
Well, it's
encompass?
platted lots, but they own
You
3
know,
of
as
them.
far as who
Or
pays
4
for
of
it
them,
right
or
here.
6 of them.
There's Watson's and
That's
the
right.
family.
They own, yeah, they own, that's right, they own 2 or 3 of them. and
Oh, I always
Mary
thought they
owns-
would show by owner.
No, this is
Still by
platted
Anybody,
lot.
anybody adjoining or attached.
That's one thing though, I wonder,
I
I don't know if I completely trust the city engineers, like that one you were saying, where it jumps over that one. Or maybe you.
Well, they damn well better have
Check
looked,
that.
if they can tell Mike they've checked, I mean, otherwise, that needs attention.
Mike, can you confirm that JEO went to the courthouse and checked on these?
Oh, yeah, Aaron talked to me, I will. I mean, I wanna make sure, because I've got the plat, and I wanna take a look at
I
these.
suspect they did, if they gave these descriptions to tree check, you'd like to think they're good, but,
And they were
but they
waiting,
never sent them to me or confirmed any of
you
it.
know, and Tree Check was waiting specifically for JEO to.
What's
Tree
Tree
Check.
Check's person?
John,
John Tree Check. Then number 5,
JEO.
number 5 is the chunk south of the railroad over on the east side of town. And there, we're talking about half of it is actually out in the country. But I guess we're talking about paving the whole thing. We could have some conversation with the county about kicking in on that, we might. And same way, the assessment is Gene Thompson, Schaefer Grain, and the lady with the acreage on the east side, 60,000 each.
They don't think they'll write checks.
I bet Gene will squawk a little.
That's gonna be rough.
So,
On it.
again, I mean, you got serious issues there, but there is another justification, this is a major thoroughfare entering town. But that's not to say those people budding on it shouldn't pay something.
Right.
That's increasing
And they-
their property
And
value.
they can pay it without any interest for how many years?
They can pay it without any interest for 90 days.
Oh,
And then it's municipal rate interest, normally about 0.5% over what you bonded for.
Right.
okay.
So if you bond it,
Fifty.
you charge a
Choice to
little
like
damn,
say zero
but
interest
bonding
or,
probably 3 or 4, and they get.
Yeah, I was figuring bonding at 4, so you charge 5.
I was thinking, well, the dollar's gonna
There's
lose
a
out
little
anyway, so.
cut
But the
of
percentage
interest, so
is
he's got
really
the
low,
money
so
to
we're
do
gonna
the
bond
paperwork.
You have a bond for
Bond for.
But certainly, I mean, you'll have to talk about this benefit issue. Schaefer Grain certainly is benefited for heavy trucks again, but they're now getting it at both ends of town, I bet you'll get an earful about that. But if you do these districts, that's what this ordinance does. You pass the ordinance, you create these districts, and it gets rolling. The one other thing about the ordinance and districts, in Tree Check's package, he sends out this lovely letter that says there's a notice of creation to be published, and he gave you guys a copy of that. And they very carefully say, publish it once each week for 2 consecutive weeks. And then there's a parenthetical that says 3 publications.
But you're
And I'm
looking
not
at-
sure that that's gonna be entirely clear to Lori what the hell they do.
But no, we already discussed this. This is going to be, because you've got 3 where a weekly paper, we're stuck with it. We're looking at a daily paper, you know, you've got 2 weeks, you can put it in 3.
But nonetheless, once each week for 2 consecutive weeks is not 3 publications.
Exactly, I know.
So I think
So twice in the Plainview News and once in the Thrifty Nickel.
our city code says 2.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a misprint, but you need to ask them the question. Do they want 2 or do they want 3? And then the other thing, the city has to send a notice to non-resident owners quickly.
Yep.
Anybody who lives outside the county. Well, we probably, either JEO, they can check it on the computer against the assessor's records, if they will, or we gotta get the title company Pierce.
We got most
to
of them
get
identified.
those addresses.
We got most of them already
You
identified.
gotta get right after that. Okay, well, if you're otherwise ready, you do the ordinance, and then they're asking that you do a resolution to set a hearing sometime later. But first you do the ordinance, if you're gonna do it tonight.
And as you're doing that, I want to keep in mind the resolution, and Lori and I talked about this, March is almost inconceivable. So just, if you could think about the April meeting as that's the time you want to do your hearing, that gives ample time for everything to come together.
So let's not do anything on this, and let's go over this in March after you have time to check with JEO to ensure that they've gone to the courthouse and ensure that all these are correct.
I would still pass the ordinance and set the resolution for April, giving plenty of time to clean up everything that needs to be.
In the really unlikely event that JEO has screwed up, and I doubt if they have, you could amend the ordinance and it sets you back.
Exactly.
Okay.
But if it's otherwise okay, you're going.
All right.
I'll make a motion, we pass ordinance 919 and resolution 498.
Do it separately.
Nope.
You hold up on the resolution because you gotta pick a date and you gotta do stuff.
Okay, well, then I will rescind that and then just I want a motion to approve ordinance 919.
I'll post that.
Motion made and seconded to approve ordinance 919. Judy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jason?
Steve.
Grant?
Yeah.
Motion passed.
You looked right at Grant, went, Judy?
Who is that?
He just wants to go.
You looked right at Grant, though, Judy?
She can hear it.
Don't worry, Bob, you stay around as mayor a little longer, you'll get to learn us.
I'm hoping not.
4 years is not very much time to learn somebody's name.
No. So, we've done that, is it? Now we've got to do a.
Well, you need to talk about this resolution for a hearing.
We just set the date for April
Incidentally,
meeting.
there is a window here, although I don't think the city wants to run ads and, publicize it tremendously, but there's a window for abutting property owners to file objections. That's what the resolution talks about. This is a hearing to consider the sufficiency of the objections. If somebody truly objects and they don't believe the city's picking up a big enough share or something, they can try to object, and there's a procedure for that. If there are no objections after the hearing, you're good to go. If
Can we do the hearing at the April council meeting?
This is only our recommendation. You do whatever you want, but we need the time. March probably won't do it. We're trying, you're up against
That's what I
it.
just said, can we do April?
Yeah.
And you gotta have 2 or 3 publications of the notice, so you don't want to.
Take care of that weird number of publications or
Yeah,
whatever.
I'll declare that. I got something from
I'll
John.
make a motion that we resolution 498 for a hearing date of April 8th at the city council meeting,
Second.
7:30.
Is it 497 or 498?
It says
498.
498.
Okay, because you already did.
Here's the-
Yep,
This is
498.
If you read that, that's what the thing says.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve that resolution
Anybody
498.
second it?
Yeah, granted.
Judy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Grant?
All right. I answered it, Judy.
I don't really want to redo these, but you might do well to keep them.
I have.
Because if there are discussions to be had,
Well, then I'm taking Bob's copy, so I'll bring it.
well, as you will, we can make more, but they have one. Did you end up with one for the office?
No, but I know one of the things I need to do, and I wouldn't mind seeing this and use it as a template, but we need to make a copy, a certified copy of the ordinance and the maps, I think, in a pamphlet form.
For,
At least that's on his little checklist.
Certainly the ordinance, and they provided an extra copy in the back of their crap for the ordinance. But
No, he's gonna
the map, that'd be something else again. These maps would serve if you want to use them. I can make more of these. The only thing is, this is awfully large.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
If you can make the print even smaller, that'd be great.
Yeah.
or Braille.
Well, if we didn't run them one page at a time, if you try to put it all on a single city map, you couldn't see anything
At all.
So we cut them up one district at a time.
Joe, you think the hell out of your tactic?
Yeah, once at a time, but
Well, if this starts to hit the fan and you are contacted by citizens and what have you, those will be pretty good property to look at and explain to them what's going on.
Just a little clarity, just so I'm clear, I didn't hear, did you waive the second and third on the ordinance?
Should we?
No, I did not.
Haven't got there yet.
Should
If you haven't got there yet by chance, would you do that if you feel, because of the experience?
Actually recognize that the way their fancy minutes read that they gave to you, I think waiving second, third comes first step and then passing the ordinance.
They already
comes second.
did.
Yeah, but do it anyway.
Well, somebody want to make that as a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass second, third readings on 9/19.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made and seconded to waive the second and third readings, is that what we're doing here? Judy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jason?
Nay.
Brad?
Aye.
I hate waving them, I just hate waving them, man. Sorry.
You're my street man,
Not allowed.
you just did that on streets?
I think you can.
He doesn't wave it on the street either, he just.
He doesn't wave it?
Because you can
No,
tell,
people don't look at me on the street.
when we waived the readings on the buildings, which was a controversy, you could tell all the interest in the crowd.
I know.
Is that everything we needed to do on that, or we've still got some steps?
We're done.
Where are we at?
I do have a couple comments, if that's where we're at.
Yes, I think we are.
One thing I forgot to talk about, one thing Jason and I learned was, talking with Jake and Tim, is I've got a list of ordinances, here they are, that Tim wants us to take a look at, and I haven't looked at.
Who
yet,
should we
honestly.
give them to?
Yeah, I would say Bruce, but they're outdated, and a lot of them are is tree trimming ordinances for whose responsibility it is, homeowners, and what you're supposed to do if that homeowner has a tree growing in the power line, you know, you're supposed to send them a written notice and all this stuff. I mean, it's, like Tim said, we need to look at what a lot of those laws.
That needs to be updated, I think we need to discuss that.
No, that makes
So,
sense.
but it's slowing them down, I mean, and that's, like we said, the tree trimming thing, that's where a lot of our efficiency is at, you know, a lot of that stuff's going to ground, well, actually, the city can't legally go into somebody's backyard with their bucket truck and cut their tree down, so.
From that same vein, thank you for the quick response to get some of those lights done.
Yeah.
Did you go check the school one out? What do you think of that?
Looks nice now.
Is that an LED wall?
What?
An LED?
LED light?
I would, yeah, on that note, I want to see, I would like to see from the March meeting kind of an update report. I gave that list, I wrote down what Tim had, Grant has that list, but I gave it to Bruce, obviously they'll just watch me do it. But I want to kind of get Bruce's take on it when we come back next week, and so we can discuss it and maybe get rid of some of that crud, if it needs to be, get rid of, please.
I'm actually, that's good. I'm glad they brought that up because normally in the ordinances in that they,
Well, it's stuff like that, if police find that stuff, bring it to us. I mean, because I'm sure we got plenty of ordinances that need to be sharpened
we
and
could
tweaked.
start from the beginning of the book. But if it's affecting their work, I think that was good for Tim as the superintendent to bring it up.
Did a good job.
I have a question, just because I ran into some couple in town, younger couple, and they were like, yeah, we do frisbee golf, and I was like, okay, what were we doing with the nets again? 'Cause I don't-
We are gonna put them in the spring.
Okay,
That's gotta
excellent.
go in the,
Put that on the website, if you can, just for
What is
back.
this?
Frisbee golf, and it's, but when the spring weather lets us get in there and put a couple holes,
Oh, you want the ground to be unthawed?
it helps.
Whatever.
So high maintenance.
We talked about the Clown Doll Museum and the expensive electrical rate this last month. What did you
I think that was, what was the last question? I mean, we did talk to, what was the question you really wanted to find out?
You said you were gonna talk to probably Tim and Jake, they'd gone down there and.
Yeah, 'cause
talked.
their usage
And
had
Kurt was
jumped
not
up.
in, but,
Larry
Nancy and Lori were the ones that called, and I didn't get an answer from Nancy before she was never in, Lori, before she took off.
Okay.
Okay. We're finding out the electrical bill is high and always was, no matter when, but yet they're not open.
Right.
Part of the concern was the water thing. I know Kurt simply asked, I believe Larry, in the conversation that Lori was having with him, or is it would be all right to just disconnect it, they get bottled water out for free anyway, why do they need a water fountain? When all somebody wants to do is have a bottle of water, they got it right there for them.
I think it was for the restroom, wasn't it?
The restroom was part of it, but not all of it. I mean, you can still lower it, but for some reason, that water going into that fountain cooler, it not only was it generating a lot of electricity, but it's just not necessary to have. So part of that was that.
Can we sometime, maybe just, we don't need to do it all the time, but get a readout for how much it costs to heat each of the buildings? I think everything's divided by departments.
Yes.
Do you have a readout for just how much the city offices are, how much this building
Like the
is?
utility bill?
Yeah, the utility
Yeah.
bills come in a separate
Yeah.
zone, don't they? But we divide, like the
Yeah.
one over the plant, police, and,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right, we divide them out by department.
I would kind of like to know how
You're not being
the
here
police
every month.
department,
Let's
the
just
old
do it.
building,
We're
how
gonna
much
check
we're
out
putting
all
into.
that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it does come in a utility grid type thing that we have to sit there, yeah, so.
Yeah, I have the bills right here, and like what each reading for each one of the
For each
buildings
meter.
was.
Just maybe next month, just put a copy of what each of the buildings is,
Mhm.
just put in our packet, just for information.
Can do that.
At the historical meeting, they were commenting that for several years, they've been asking, and I didn't know about it before then, they have to do something with a pipe so they can put in another bathroom somewhere.
The bottom line is that is a Lori, not Lori, Lois Olson and Jake, and I want to call it standoff. Jake keeps telling her that those are so old, there's nothing to go to. He actually went down to look at what was there, and for years they were, you didn't hear this, they were taking a toilet and it wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't going into the sewer pipes. It was going somewhere. So he fixed all of that, but now they want a second toilet in there, and I understand.
Do they want it to actually go to the sewer? I guess the big question.
We fixed it so the good one goes to the sewer, and that created that's that big hole that we dug out there, and then now they want another one, and Lois leans on, I think, Jake quite a bit, but I think he's been resistant to try to sit there and hook that up, because we have to dig it all up again. What we can do as an option, but it's somebody's cost. I mean, I don't know where the city got involved in this, but at somebody's cost, we'll have to hook up the second toilet and then come out and connect in to the pipe where the first toilet comes out properly. And we can do that, but it's going to be another digging.
Why is that the city's
Yeah, why is it the city's?
And she said it doesn't have to be at the city's expense, but she thought it would be cheaper if the city did it than they hired a plumber to do it.
City's not a plumber.
Yeah, we're not contracting.
I know, and I know exactly where Judy's coming from, because Lois asked this question
But
all
at the
the
same
time.
time, if we're doing all that stuff for the Clown Museum, why is the Historical Museum different?
Well, the main reason on the clown, although it's close, Joe, I'm not arguing, but we actually do own the Clown Dome Museum. And
Yeah, we
everything
do
in
some
it,
stuff
the
for
contents, where the Historical Society is not owned by the city.
It's
But we did
amazing
some
though
stuff
that we
like-
own it, we don't see the checkbook, we don't know what the finances are, we don't.
I don't think you want to.
Well, they're commingled now.
Ask that, Jim, maybe we can get some.
Don't we take care of the Girl Scouts cabin too?
And that is actually, Judy and I looked at that, and I've been looking at it for a couple months, but the job and the work they did, they are not, the administrator no longer is angry at them. So it's only $100. I think
It
so.
doesn't look good when the administrator goes against the girls' council, Mike.
I
Come
know,
on.
he did.
My thing is, as much as we write, or I write the guys about getting their own stuff done and getting stuff done for this around town, I think that's the last thing they should be working on, I'm sorry, but
What?
that's my stance.
The plumbing thing?
Plumbing things and stuff, if they need a service to the curb, okay. I mean, I understand their point, it's more of a community service thing, but on the other hand,
We got
there's
trees
other
and
stuff.
stuff. We got
Okay,
trees.
so I'll go back to them and I'll tell them they need
That's
to do that.
just mine, I mean,
I think years ago, before BM, Jake had a good relationship, and I think that Lois, over the last 10 years, has kind of abused that relationship. Anytime anything's needed to be done at the Historical Museum, she calls Jake directly and says, Jake, I need a light bulb put up. And Jake, trying to be nice, will go down and do it, but I think he kind of put his foot in the sand on this one.
I'll just tell
Is
them.
that okay?
I'll tell
I'll
them.
replace
City
light bulbs
council
for
didn't
half
think
of
that
what
was
Jake makes.
necessary. I have no problem with that. She thought you were gonna do it.
Okay.
I'll go back to her.
I think those were all council comments.
Yeah, I have one last thing, I promise.
Oh, okay.
I want an update on the wellhead protection thing, and if that wasn't clear, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that, on the agenda for next week, or next month. No, sorry.
You said next week a couple times, so.
Oh, God, no. Yeah, all right, that's
Do
on.
we need to have a presence at the Manor Board meetings, since you haven't been making most of them? Is it just a bad time for you, that 4:30?
Yeah, we changed the time, and I know it's becoming more difficult. It probably wouldn't hurt. I mean, there's just the point where I'm starting to have to say no to something. They don't think I say no enough, you know, so.
Well, 4:30 though is like the farmer's market during the day. Maybe we could
I gotta go to the farmer's market.
You're supposed to be at work that time.
Then stop it.
You better do that right. Always had struck me in the past that very few of our city administrators ever did go to all of those
They
various
did.
meetings.
I even asked, I was gonna kick out Rod, because I like Rod. I see Rod Storm. You know, Ken wrote about that. I like Rod, and I said, but, and I told him what I was doing. He goes, you do it. What? Because I'm gonna do, you don't do it. So, but that's okay. I enjoy seeing the videos and going forward.
Well, I don't, Mike, you need to be going, man, a person, I mean, I'm not telling you, I'm not telling anyone anything, I'm just saying, if you didn't go, I wouldn't be upset, but.
There, and the reason I haven't made quite a few of them lately, and Julian's having a problem, it's a good problem, is she's not having a lot of activity. She's not getting a quorum herself. She has to call them at the last second to get 2 or 3 there. So she's having board members now slip out on her and thinking, there's nothing going on. She's done in 15 minutes.
Well, but then maybe the time is a bad time to have it, if you can't get a quorum. I mean, that should show you.
It must work for Kim Wilkin or the president or something like that. Because
Can
they
they
have,
change it to like, make it every other month meeting or something?
they're looking into that. And it is okay in the code book to do that. I looked at the code book to see, because a lot of them have meet monthly, certain set times and that, and they are not.
We don't need a presence there at all, I don't know.
No, nothing stopping you from going, Judy.
No, I didn't wanna go necessarily.
Don't worry about it.
They lost $10,000 last month. I don't know whether they talk about that one there particularly.
What to be perfectly honest, the board there has changed so much, and there's a lot of things that change. They don't recognize maybe the good from the bad as well as they should, and I'm not gonna blame them, because they're just new. The whole board is new. But I don't think.
Whether you're new or not, Either that or
It is
they
10
don't-
grand in a month.
If you don't have time for 15 minutes a month, maybe they just aren't paying attention.
Or they shouldn't be on the board.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe we can rethink the not allowing hospital board members on there. I'm just tossing that out there.
I don't think we have any more to do.
No, there aren't any on there.
I know, but remember, we kind of said contradictory, whatever.
Well, that's when we actually own the hospital, but
Right.
we don't
But-
own that anymore.
Right, so I'm saying if you want to ask someone who is on the
Trust
hospital.
me, I don't think that's the problem. You can't get people leaving Rutherford City Council and mayor, let's be honest. But I mean,
No one worth a crap at least.
Well, no, but good luck, it's hard to find.
I heard we're going by height.
But I mean, it's the same thing.
What?
We're going by height.
I think so. It's stacked shit that high, so that's, anyways.
Well, if we're done with city council comments,
It's Mr. Bruce's.
city attorney comments.
Mr. Holden, given given me 2 class action suits to review. It's all crap, throw it away.
Yay. Suspicion.
I just read over all the tree branch ordinances on this list. Yep, they're all tree branch ordinances. What else do you wanna know?
Well, are they good? Are they?
Yes.
Give me that. I haven't read.
Why don't you ask them what their problem is with those ordinances? Maybe they could identify their question.
I haven't read it.
But they are all tree branch ordinances.
But I think a lot of them were just the way it was set up, maybe changing the way those ordinances are.
Yeah, you could, but what do they want to do? I mean, I can give you a memo on them next month, I guess.
Can you have I want to read through myself, because I haven't done that yet.
You got the list?
I do.
If there's one that Tim specifically has, I mean.
2 or 3 of them are tree board ordinances, saying we have a tree board and they should do this and so. They don't do hardly any of that. They get a sign every couple of years and put it on the highway that says we have a.
Tim said one of them says you can only plant one kind of tree or something in town.
The tree board ordinance says that the tree board has the power to regulate types of trees that are planted in certain places, and they should. I mean, you don't wanna plant cottonwood trees on the curb downtown. And
We
you don't
can't have
wanna
trees
plant,
downtown.
crab apples all over the park. So yeah, they should. There's 2 or 3 about notices to homeowners to trim their trees about over sidewalks.
Yeah.
Probably that makes sense. There's one that says you should not be able to trim trees within 10 feet of power lines without notifying the city. That's probably.
I think a lot of it is probably enforcing, because the one we talked about was, like he brought up, was like the sidewalk one, the 10 foot within power lines. You know, how do we as a council or a city start enforcing some of this stuff to make people trim their trees, make people. So that's why I guess.
Well, if you have the list, read them over. I mean, we can certainly do more, but the laws are there, adequate to accomplish all those things. We have to have somebody go.
Paper they're written on sometimes.
Yeah. If they're nuisances or crimes, they would be enforced by the police. If they're electrical, they would be enforced by the electrical department going around and trimming trees.
You would get the electrical department right with the police on 2 birds with 1 stone.
Well, I can imagine, I can imagine, but there's no point in me imagining. Get somebody to say what their question is.
Yeah, that's
What they
why I
want
asked my.
changed, what they want changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a little bit, I mean, it's okay, I'm glad my city superintendent was stepping up.
Oh, yeah, I think there's.
But I don't
No,
know
I'm
exactly.
not, let's look into it like he asked us to.
Well, I think the biggest thing is, I think he was trying to make it known that the city doesn't own all the power lines where the trees are growing and that sort of thing, and they're coming across that sort of
Right.
stuff. So
Well, that could be.
the next step is we need to enforce it, or press upon the subdivision enforcement.
Yeah, after that, I wet my backyard, like, oh, I'm one of those people, so I'm gonna expect a city notice.
I'm gonna send those guys over with a chainsaw and tell them you give me their through permission.
Thanks, Mark. Okay.
Okay, well, yeah, the tree ordinance is all right, but if you can get a list of questions, that'd be good.
Well, and the one thing that got brought up is that some of that stuff's not being enforced, and that when they start replacing power lines and stuff in town with this build, it's gonna turn into a real problem.
Well, that'd kind of go to a public notice advertisement or something, get your trees off our power lines,
While you're out
if
sweeping
you
your
wanted to
sidewalks.
do that, but I mean, that's the sort of thing that,
Hey, by the way.
people don't know it's the law, then they probably don't care or something like that.
Well, I brought up the fact that honestly, most of the people, you know, look around the average age of the people in town, especially in some of the older parts of town, they don't even leave their house. They don't go in their backyard. And no way in hell are they gonna go out with a chainsaw and cut down trees. It's cold out there. And there's a fact of that.
Speaking of that, are we giving away firewood in the park, or what's going on with that branch anyway?
Removed soon, sooner would be
But
better.
it's all cut up. Did somebody go take the firewood out of it?
As they need it.
Don't you see the construction workers at the cabins
Like
I was wondering how they heated
I
their
might,
chambers.
I might stop in and haul away a few chunks, I guess.
Well, I got a couple other places you can stop to.
Otherwise,
It rains that loud out down here.
I'll cut up real nice.
I guess.
No, but it could be.
Would you do that?
But I grew up with a train.
You know you have an unlicensed vehicle or something to your
I did.
Administrators' comments, except we all did the intern part, so do you have anything else besides the intern to make comments on? No, that's good.
Start away.
Community comments.
Rumbling out there.
Community comments?
Train.
Really?
Wait, I need to pick
Yet.
up Mike.
Oh, okay. Pick on Mike.
Okay, I was gonna go through all this, but honestly, you've answered the majority of this.
Well, actually, I wouldn't mind it. I mean, maybe
No, seriously, you talked about the.
everything that's on
Since
that.
you put the snow shoveling thing in the paper, I've had somebody request that we just heat the sidewalks.
Tell them we take donations.
In
Would
all
you do mine
seriousness.
first?
What's that?
If you're gonna heat the sidewalks, would you do mine first?
Everything on that was, I checked off today with the exception of one. I did
Do
not
that right
attend
after we
Lincoln.
dome the park.
Is it
Right,
that
you
way?
said that. My question is the project
Different
we're working
lady
right
this
now,
time.
just working
Not to
with
worry, I
Sheila.
split the whole north side all the way across from
Sure.
Grand Deputy.
Do Chris said for employees pay and wages across Northeast Nebraska, what about that?
It's all done. She got, it's part of the, you do it, Lori actually had to be part of that too. We put the data together, send it, they do it for all the towns
Just
in
waiting for
Northeast.
Mike.
Is that like a municipal thing or something? Okay, that's just like,
Medical building.
well, that's kind of raising the bar. Because if that's what you normally do, that's what you normally do.
Every year she buzzes, she keeps buzzing, and buzzing, and buzzing, and I think she's-
Telecom industry does the same thing.
Never mind.
Only one comment I'll make, and I'll actually just say it succinctly and slowly and nicely. Bob gave me my written reprimand here a couple days ago. At the bottom of his written reprimand, it says, you may prepare and file a written response if you wish, and I did put a written response in there. Everyone's more than welcome to see it, but I'm gonna put it in my personnel file and put it away, so I didn't, any comments, I just was a little discouraged. I went home, I had a lot of issues and said things like that, but it was a very difficult time. I talked with Grant, I talked with Joe, I might have even talked with Bob a second. It was just, maybe it was getting late like this, I don't know, but I was kind of shocked the way it presented itself, and I think that was all I was trying to get across. I don't want to belabor it. We put a list together, and I know that I did my list, and I'll continue to do that. The dry erase boards are up, and I've already got some things marked off, including the LED lights. We're trying to do green things. My fingers are in more possible things than you can imagine. I know Joe knows that, but we're trying to do paving now. We're trying to do electrical. We're trying to do transfer. I mean, we're trying to beautify and make this town the best it can. There are some things that are just out of my control. So, are you all right with it?
I'm fine, Mike, I understand your point, just next time, and maybe you didn't even think of it at the time, just say, I don't think I can do that. I think we're very understanding here about
I
stuff
know,
like
there
that.
was just too much on my plate that I couldn't reveal. There were things that were very personal, and the combination of these
You
issues.
can even say that, just say I got personal issues
I
going
know,
on.
and I told him it was still so
We
personal at the
understand.
time, so.
You guys want to say this? Kind of creeps me out, Bob closed it with X's and O's, Bob.
Yeah,
No, see, the O's are him co-signing for Mike's X's.
Oh, I don't want to go there.
That's a lot of X's, no?
Motion to go home.
Second is going way down here.
Second.
All right, Judy,
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Anybody has anything, come on, please stop on down. And we're gonna be, Judy, I'll try to get your questions answered. Quicker I go over and put it on my little board below, fire
I
Jake.
got stuff for you.
I'm sorry.
Have a good night.
Your turn's coming.
Is it?
See, or I have to hunt you down tomorrow, so.
Anybody went on the Co-Opportunity website recently? Have they had any problems?
I've been on the Co-Opportunity website, and it's really good.
Do the sign there.
Amy needs to, Tyler's Amy is going to go on as a college student. She's trying to get on. I think she's waiting at the house. And I haven't went on it personally.
Oh, you're talking about the government healthcare site or the co-op site?
No, not co-op. Government health site.
Because those are two
I know,
completely
totally
different
different.
things.
Totally. The government health site.
Government health site is much better, but if you have, what they say, if you have a single dependent, there's a glitch in it. And she doesn't have any dependents, so she should be fine.
So it's
Right
only with
there.
the little glitch
That
on
should
that?
be it.
Whose
always
black
sticking
jacket
us
is
for
that?
Lori, so.
I thought that was yours.
That's my coat. That's my coat.
Thank you.
Joe, you want me to write you a check in this?
What?
I got control of the PCED checkbook now.
Oh, you do?
Hello.
No, we need to
I have
have
to
the
perform an
Marley
audit.
conference.
Somehow I'm treasurer and somehow I'm